Ethan Cole noticed the couples before he noticed the music. The restaurant was packed, the kind of old Seattle spot where the windows fogged from heat and conversation, where garlic and red wine lived in the air like a memory you could taste. A violinist played near the bar, not loud enough to be a performance, just present enough to make people lean closer across candlelight. That was what Ethan kept staring at. The leaning in, the soft laughter, fingers circling a glass stem, a woman's hand resting on a man's wrist like it belonged there. He told himself he was only watching because it was everywhere, because he was waiting for the server, because he was nervous. But the truth sat heavier. 3 years ago, Ethan had stopped expecting the world to look normal. He had learned how to pack lunches, sign permission slips, and build a steady life out of a salary that always ran out too early. He had learned how to smile when Lucy asked if Mommy could see her new drawing from heaven. He had learned how to keep his grief folded up like a letter he never opened in public. Tonight was supposed to be work, a professional dinner, a chance to talk about his performance review, the promotion that could mean a better neighborhood, a safer school, a lawyer he could afford when Lucy's grandparents decided to come for custody again. And across the table sat the woman who held the pen. Claire Whitmore did not blend into rooms. She did not have to raise her voice. She did not have to flash a smile. She simply existed with a kind of calm authority that made people straighten their posture without knowing why. Her black dress was simple-fitted expensive in a way that never begged to be noticed. Her blonde hair was pulled into a neat twist. No jewelry except a thin watch that looked like it could measure someone's heartbeat. Ethan had seen her in boardrooms, on magazine covers, on stage at corporate events. The Whitmore Dynamics CEO, the Ice Queen, the woman who rarely spoke to anyone below director level unless she needed a decision signed in blood, and the woman who had fired his wife. Ethan still remembered the day Lena came home with a cardboard box and eyes that looked too calm, as if she had already rehearsed the shock and couldn't afford to feel it again. She had tried to make it sound normal, downsizing, restructuring, nothing personal. The check would cover a few months. Then, weeks later, the diagnosis, then the appointments, then the chemo, then the hospital nights where Ethan slept in a chair and pretended he wasn't afraid. Then the funeral, and Lena's parents, sharp and polished, taking everything they could with the force of money, including her personal effects, including her desk items from the company, including the last pieces of her life that still smelled like her. Ethan had hated Claire Whitmore for years without ever needing to say it out loud. Now Claire watched him like she knew exactly what he was thinking. "You're distracted," she said. Ethan's eyes snapped back to her. The candlelight made her irises look lighter than they should have, almost silver. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's been a long week. Lucy's school has been calling. My sitter canceled twice. I should have rescheduled." "No." Claire's voice was soft, but it was a command, not comfort. "You did the right thing by coming." Ethan swallowed. The server arrived and poured water. Claire didn't touch her glass. She didn't touch the bread basket. She sat with her hands folded as if even eating would be a waste of time. Ethan tried to focus on work. He asked about timelines. He mentioned the new client account his team had landed. He reminded her carefully that he had been covering 2 roles since the reorg. He threaded the word promotion into a sentence like a needle through fabric, hoping it would hold. Claire listened, really listened. No phone, no glance toward the door, no impatience. That alone felt unnatural. Then Ethan's gaze drifted again, dragged by a laugh from the next table. A couple leaned together, noses almost touching private in a public place. The woman kissed the man's cheek, and he closed his eyes like he was letting it happen to his whole life. Ethan looked away too slowly. He felt it before he saw it, the shift in Claire's attention like a camera refocusing. Her chair barely moved as she leaned forward. Her voice dropped low enough that the room could keep buzzing around them without stealing the words. "You could have that too," Claire said. Ethan blinked, unsure he heard correctly. "Excuse me." Claire's expression did not change, but something in her eyes did, a tightness at the edges, a crack in glass. She reached into her purse and placed a small velvet box on the table between them. Black, matte, new. Ethan stared at it like it might bite. A ring. His pulse thudded against his ribs. His first instinct was anger, sharp and instinctive. His second was fear. Not of her, of the consequences, of the way this could break his carefully built stability with one wrong move. "This is not appropriate," he said, keeping his voice flat. Claire's gaze stayed on him. "Open it." Ethan's hand hovered. He did not touch the box. "Why?" he asked. "What is this?" Claire's lips parted slightly as if she had to choose the next words with care. "Because you deserve to know why I have been watching you." Ethan's stomach tightened. Watching him. All these years. He remembered the way her attention sometimes found him at company functions, not warm, not flirtatious, just present. He had told himself it was paranoia, that CEOs didn't track middle managers, that his grief had made him suspicious. Now the box sat there undeniable. Ethan's fingers closed around the lid. The velvet felt almost soft enough to be kind. His hand shook anyway. He opened it. There was no ring. Instead, there was a small golden key, heavy-looking, attached to a worn keychain that didn't match the box at all. The keychain held a tiny photo frame. Inside it, behind scratched plastic, was Lena. Not a wedding photo. Not a posed portrait. Lena, at a desk, smiling at someone off camera, her hair tucked behind her ear, a pencil in her hand as if she had been interrupted mid-thought. Ethan's throat tightened so fast it hurt. "That's impossible," he whispered. His hands went cold. He could almost smell the office on her, the printer ink and coffee, and the faint floral lotion she used in winter. "This was with her things," Ethan said, voice rough. "Her parents took everything after the funeral." Claire did not look away. The polished mask she wore in the office slipped just enough for him to see something underneath it. Not softness exactly. Something bruised. "Not everything," Claire said. Ethan's eyes burned. He forced himself to blink. "How do you have this?" Claire's gaze flicked to the restaurant windows. Outside, the streetlights shone on wet pavement. A black sedan pulled up at the curb, too smooth, too deliberate, idling with its headlights off. Claire's posture tightened. "They're here," she said. Ethan turned his head instinctive, but her hand shot out and closed around his wrist. Her grip was strong, startling. "Do not look," she said low and urgent. "Listen to me." Ethan's heart hammered. The restaurant noise blurred into a distant roar. Claire's eyes locked on his, and for the first time, Ethan saw fear there. Controlled, caged, but real. "Lena did not have cancer," Claire said. The words landed like a slap. Ethan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. His mind grabbed for anything solid, any memory that could anchor the world back into place. The hospital bracelet, the chemo cap, Lena's smile when she pretended the nausea wasn't winning. Claire kept speaking measured, as if she had practiced this in her head and still hated every syllable. It was a cover, she said. She was working on something that got her killed, and now it is circling back. Ethan's breathing turned shallow. "Kill." Claire's fingers tightened on his wrist. "Your daughter is the final piece." Ethan lurched forward slightly, chair scraping. "Lucy is at home." "I know," Claire said. "She is safe for the moment. But we need to leave. Now." Ethan's hand went for his pocket. His phone felt like the only normal object left in his life. Claire shook her head once. No calls. Ethan froze. "What are you talking about?" Claire's eyes stayed calm even as her voice sharpened. "If you trust me for 1 minute, stand up, take the key, and walk with me through the kitchen. Do not run. Do not look at the windows. Do not touch your phone." Ethan stared at her, trying to decide if this was insanity or truth. He thought of Lucy asleep in her dinosaur pajamas, her hair sticking up in the back, Benny, the teddy bear, tucked under her arm. He thought of Lena's voice reading bedtime stories the way she always said, "Trust your gut, Ethan. It knows things before your brain does." His gut was screaming. Ethan closed his fingers around the key, the metal bit into his palm. Claire stood first. She moved like someone who owned the building, like the room was simply another asset on a spreadsheet. She brushed past Ethan's chair close enough that he caught that clean rain scent again, and for a split second he felt the strange electric wrongness of how much he needed her to be telling the truth. Ethan rose. They started walking. If you are locked in so far, tap like and subscribe to support the channel. Before we dive into what happens next, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. Ethan kept his eyes forward as Claire guided him between tables. The dining room felt suddenly too bright, too loud, too normal. Plates clinked. Someone laughed. A waiter squeezed past with a tray of tiramisu, smiling like the world was safe. Ethan's body did not believe it. Claire moved with a calm that bordered on cruel. One hand held her clutch. The other rested lightly on Ethan's elbow, a steadying touch that said, "Do not break character." Her fingernails were short, neat, unremarkable, not the hands of a woman who threatened people for a living. Yet her grip carried a warning he could feel in his bones. They slipped through the kitchen doors. Heat hit them first. The air smelled of butter and seared meat. Pans hissed. Cooks shouted in rapid Spanish. No one looked up for more than a second because Claire Whitmore walked like she belonged anywhere she chose. A dishwasher glanced at her and nodded. Claire nodded back without slowing. Ethan tried to speak, but his throat had gone tight again. Lena did not have cancer. The sentence played on a loop, slamming into every memory he owned. The hollow relief when the doctor said they were doing everything possible. The desperate hope when a new treatment plan sounded promising. The numb terror when the promising plan stopped working. Claire pushed open a back door, and the cold night air struck Ethan's face like a wake-up. They stepped into an alley slick with rain. A row of dumpsters. A humming electrical box. Steam rising from a vent in the pavement. Seattle smelled like wet concrete and moss, like the city had been rinsed clean and still could not wash off its secrets. At the far end of the alley sat a silver sedan with tinted windows. Not a rideshare. Not a taxi. The kind of car that waited without blinking. Claire did not head toward it. Instead, she led Ethan to the opposite side where a low, sleek coupe was parked beneath a broken security light. Metallic gray. Clean. Expensive. The car looked wrong back here among trash and graffiti, like a diamond dropped in a gutter. Claire pressed a button on her key fob. The lights flashed once. "Get in," she said. Ethan's feet stopped moving. His brain finally caught up to his body's panic. "Claire," he said, and he hated how small his voice sounded. "Tell me why you have Lena's photo. Tell me why you just said my wife was murdered." Claire's jaw tightened. She looked past him, not at him. A figure moved at the mouth of the alley, a shadow shifting where shadows should not shift. Ethan's muscles tensed. His instinct screamed to turn to see, to name the threat. Claire caught his wrist again harder. "Do not," she said. "Please." That single word from her sounded like it cost something. Ethan stared at her face in the dim light. He saw a faint tremor in her breath, a pulse beating at her throat. Fear, yes, but disciplined, controlled, aimed like a weapon. "My daughter," he said. "Lucy is at home. She is not alone," Claire replied. "I put people there when I got your text that you were leaving for this dinner." Ethan flinched. "You put people at my house." "I put security at your house," Claire said, as if correcting a childish misunderstanding. 20 minutes ago, because you knew Ethan snapped. You knew something was coming. Claire opened the driver's side door. The interior light revealed clean leather and a dashboard that looked like a cockpit. She turned to him, and the alley's darkness made her eyes look even paler. "I knew there was a chance they would move tonight," she said. "I did not know it would be this fast." Ethan's hands curled into fists. "Who is they?" Claire exhaled, once controlled. "People who have been waiting for the same thing I have." Ethan's throat worked, and Lena was involved. Claire's gaze held steady. Yes, Ethan could not move. He felt nailed to the wet pavement by grief and rage and disbelief. Claire leaned closer, lowering her voice so it stayed inside the narrow space between them. Ethan, if you stay in this alley, you will die. Or you will disappear. Either way, Lucy loses you. His chest tightened at Lucy's name. Ethan looked toward the alley entrance again. The silver sedan at the curb outside the restaurant had not followed them in, but that did not mean it was gone. Seattle had a way of swallowing cars and spitting them out in different streets. He climbed into the passenger seat. Claire shut his door with a firm click, then slid behind the wheel. The moment she sat down, her composure sharpened. She adjusted the mirror, tapped the screen on the dash, and pulled out with a smoothness that made Ethan think she had driven under pressure before. The coupe rolled out of the alley and merged into traffic like it belonged there. Rain streaked the windshield. Streetlights blurred into long golden lines. Ethan's heart kept trying to run. He reached for his phone again. He needed to hear Lucy's voice. He needed proof she was breathing. Claire's hand snapped out, palm open, not grabbing him but stopping him. "No," she said. Ethan glared at her. "You do not get to tell me I cannot call my child." Claire's eyes stayed on the road. "If they are listening, your call tells them you believe me. It tells them you have the key. It tells them you are moving." Ethan's mouth went dry. The key. He opened his palm. The gold key sat there like a small sun too bright for the darkness around it. Lena's face in the tiny frame smiled up at him, frozen in a moment that now felt stolen. Ethan swallowed hard. "Where did you get this?" Claire's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Lena gave it to me." Ethan's laugh came out sharp, almost ugly. "My wife did not hand you anything. She was dying." Claire's jaw muscle jumped. She was not dying. Ethan's vision flickered. The rain outside seemed to tilt. Claire kept driving. She took an exit toward the waterfront, then swung under an overpass where the concrete pillars made the world feel underground. Ethan noticed she never hesitated, never searched for a turn like she had memorized this route. "You said it was a cover," Ethan forced out. "Cancer, the hospital, the chemo." Claire did not answer right away. The silence stretched, filled by the rhythmic swipe of the wipers. Finally, she said, "Your wife was one of the best people I ever recruited." Ethan's stomach turned. Recruited. Claire's voice stayed level. Lena was not in marketing. She was not a designer who made brochures. Ethan's breath caught. He remembered Lena at the kitchen table late at night, laptop open, the blue glow on her face. He thought she had been catching up on work. He thought she had been exhausted. "You are lying," he said. He wanted the words to have power. Claire's gaze flicked to him for the briefest second. "I am not." Ethan gripped the edge of the seat, then explained to me why my wife was throwing up into a bucket at 3 a.m. Explain the port in her chest. Explain the way her hair fell out in clumps. Claire's throat moved. Her composure thinned just enough for Ethan to see the effort behind it. "That part was real," Claire said quietly. Ethan stared at her. "So she did have cancer." Claire shook her head once. She did not have cancer. She had symptoms. Ethan's mind snagged on the phrasing. Symptoms from what? Claire's eyes stayed on the road. From exposure. Ethan felt ice spread through his ribs. Exposure to what? Claire did not answer immediately. She took a tight turn down a sloping ramp into a parking structure that did not have a sign. The entrance gate rose without her stopping, like the building recognized her car. Concrete swallowed the city noise. The air turned colder and smelled faintly of oil. Claire parked in a corner near a door marked "Staff Only." She killed the engine. For a moment, neither of them moved. Ethan's hands were shaking again. He hated it. He forced them still by clenching the key so hard the teeth bit into his skin. Claire turned in her seat to face him. The fluorescent light overhead made her look paler, more human, less like a monument. Lena was investigating a leak, Claire said. A real one. Not office gossip, not financial fraud. Ethan's heartbeat thudded. A leak of what? Claire's eyes held his now, and he felt the weight of her words before she even spoke them. Proprietary medical research, she said. The kind that could change treatment outcomes. The kind foreign buyers will pay for. The kind people will kill for. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. Lena had talked about his company's breakthroughs in vague terms, proud of the mission, careful about details. Ethan had believed she was proud to be part of it in a normal way. "You are saying my wife was some kind of spy," he said. Claire's expression did not soften, but her voice did. "I am saying your wife was brave." Ethan's eyes burned. He looked down at Lena's photo again. Her smile. Her pencil. That moment in the office that now had an entire second life beneath it. "I watched her get fired," Ethan said, voice thick. "You did it. You signed it." Claire nodded once. "I did." Ethan's anger surged hot and sudden. "And you expect me to trust you?" Claire's lips pressed together. For a flicker of a second she looked like she might flinch, but she did not. "I fired her to protect her," she said. Ethan leaned back as if she had shoved him. "Protect her by taking her income, by humiliating her, by making my family panic." Claire's eyes did not leave his. "We staged it so whoever she was hunting would believe she was out of the building and out of play." Ethan's laugh came out again, this time hollow. "And the cancer cover story, that was yours too." Claire's gaze dropped for the first time. It was hers. Ethan's chest tightened. "She chose to lie to me." Claire looked up. Her face was controlled, but her eyes had something raw behind them. "She chose to keep you safe," Claire said. Ethan's throat ached. "She died anyway." Claire's hands folded in her lap, fingers interlaced so tightly the knuckles showed white. "The crash was not an accident," she said. Ethan stared at her. The words did not land all at once. They arrived in pieces like glass. He saw the police officer at his door. The rain that day. The way the officer had said, "I am sorry, sir," like he had said it too many times to mean it anymore. He heard his own voice at the hospital asking for a body that was already gone. He remembered the closed casket and the way Lena's mother insisted it was better this way. Ethan's breath came shallow. "You are telling me she was murdered?" Claire nodded. "Yes." Ethan's hands flew to his face for a second, then dropped again. He could not hide from it. His grief had been a wound he learned to live with. Now it tore open and bled into everything. Why he whispered, why her? Claire's voice steadied the way a person steadies a boat in rough water. Because she got too close. Because she found something that scared the wrong people. Ethan swallowed. "And now Lucy is involved because of a key." Claire shook her head. "The key opens what Lena left behind." Ethan's heart pounded. "Where?" Claire lifted her chin toward the staff door, toward whatever sat beyond it. "Somewhere safe." Ethan's fingers tightened on the keychain. "And you said Lucy is the final piece." Claire's gaze sharpened. Lena hid the encryption codes where she thought no one would look. Ethan's mind raced through Lucy's room, the shelves, the toy box, the stuffed animals lined up like a small parade. He saw Benny, the worn teddy bear Lucy carried everywhere, one ear slightly torn, fur faded where Lucy's fingers rubbed it for comfort. Ethan's stomach dropped. No. Claire's voice stayed quiet. Yes. Ethan felt his pulse in his ears. "You are telling me my child has been sleeping with evidence." Claire nodded once. "She has been sleeping with a lock. The key is in your hand." Ethan stared at Claire. At the woman he had hated. At the woman who now looked less like a villain and more like someone standing in the same fire. "She told my daughter," Ethan said, voice breaking. "She told Lucy anything about this." Claire's gaze softened by a fraction. Lena was careful. "But children hear more than we think." Ethan squeezed his eyes shut for a second, then opened them. His voice came out low-edged with panic. "Claire," he said, "if people are already watching me, then they are already close to my house." Claire nodded. "That is why we are here." Ethan's hand shot to his pocket again, reflexive. Claire held up her own phone screen already lit. A text thread glowed there, short lines of updates from an unnamed contact. 2 unknown vehicles on your street. Holding position. Team in place. No breach. Child inside. Calm. Ethan's breath hitched. He stared at the words until they blurred. You have someone in my home, he said, voice tight. And you did not tell me. Claire met his eyes. I'm telling you now. Ethan looked at the staff door. He imagined Lucy, asleep unaware, her small chest rising and falling. He imagined strangers outside her window. The thought made his hands shake with a rage that did not know where to go. Claire opened her door and stepped out. The garage air rushed in cold and damp. She paused and looked back at him. I need you to move, she said. I need you to be quiet. And I need you to decide fast. Ethan stared at her for a long second, then forced his body to obey. He climbed out, the key clenched in his fist. Claire led him to the staff door. It opened with a keypad, and her fingerprint no hesitation. The hallway beyond was clean unmarked, lit with white lights that made Ethan feel like he had walked into a place that did not exist on maps. They passed a security desk. A man in plain clothes looked up, nodded once at Claire, then looked at Ethan with a quick assessment that felt like a weapon being measured. Ethan's skin prickled. Where are we? Claire did not slow. A Whitmore facility. What kind of facility? Claire glanced back, eyes sharp. The kind you did not know you needed. They entered a room filled with monitors, maps pinned to walls, radio chatter low and constant. People moved with purpose, not rushing, not casual. Headsets, tablets, a whiteboard with streets and intersections written in tight block letters. Ethan's stomach turned over. This was not corporate. This was operational. Claire took a vest from a cabinet and held it out to him. Black heavy, the kind you see on news footage after something goes wrong. Ethan stared at it. You've got to be kidding. Claire's voice stayed even. Put it on. Ethan did not move. His mind clung to one thought, the only one that mattered. My daughter, he said. I want her in my arms. Claire's eyes held his steady and unflinching. Then you will do this right. Ethan took the vest. It felt heavier than it should, like it carried the reality he had been refusing. As he pulled it over his shoulders, his phone vibrated in his pocket. A phantom buzz at first, then real. He froze. Claire's eyes snapped to him. Do not answer. Ethan's hand hovered. His heart pounded. The phone stopped vibrating. A second later, a notification flashed across his lock screen. A missed call from an unknown number. No voicemail. Ethan's mouth went dry. Claire stepped closer. Her voice lowered, controlled. They are testing you, she said. Ethan swallowed. Who? Claire's gaze shifted to the monitors, to the map with his street marked in red. The same people who took Lena from you. Ethan's hand closed around the key again, the teeth digging into his palm until it hurt. He did not mind the pain. It kept him anchored. Claire turned toward a wall of screens. One of them showed a grainy live feed of his neighborhood. Wet asphalt. Streetlights. 2 dark vehicles parked with their lights off. Ethan's breath caught. That was his street. That was the corner Lucy rode her bike around in summer. That was the sidewalk where Lena had held Lucy's hand. Claire's voice cut through the roar in his head. We go in quietly, she said. Ethan's eyes stayed on the screen. His voice came out hoarse. And if they are inside already? Claire did not flinch. Then we get her out anyway. Ethan finally looked at Claire. Really looked. Not the CEO on a magazine cover. Not the woman behind a termination letter. A person who had been holding a secret heavy enough to bend a life. He wanted to hate her. He still did in places he could not reach. But fear for Lucy was louder than hate. Ethan nodded once, sharp, almost violent. For my daughter, he said. Claire's gaze softened by the smallest degree, like relief that she refused to show. For Lucy, she replied. Claire moved first, and the room moved with her. A woman at one of the consoles tapped her headset and spoke without raising her voice. Unit 2 confirm eyes on both vehicles. A reply crackled back through the speakers, thin with static. Confirmed. 2 sedans. No plates, one driver each, no movement. Ethan stared at the screen until his eyes ached. Rain made the street shine. The dark shapes of the cars sat like sleeping animals. Claire stepped to a table covered with neatly arranged gear. Nothing flashy, everything practical. She picked up a slim earpiece and a small radio. Then she looked at Ethan. "Your phone stays here," she said. Ethan's hand tightened around the device in his pocket like it was part of his body. "If Lucy wakes up and panics, she will call me." Claire's gaze held steady. "If you carry it, it becomes a beacon. They want you to light up." Ethan wanted to argue. He wanted to demand a better answer. But Lucy Street was on the screen. The unknown cars were not imagination, not paranoia, not grief playing tricks. He pulled out the phone, hesitated, then set it on the table like he was setting down a piece of himself. Claire passed him the earpiece. "Put this in." Ethan did fingers clumsy. A faint hiss filled his ear, then a voice calm and close. "Audio, check," the voice said. Ethan startled. "Who is that?" "Name is Miles," the voice replied. "I am outside your place." Ethan swallowed hard. "My daughter. Is she okay?" There was a pause long enough to make Ethan's stomach drop. Then Miles spoke again, steady. "Child is inside. Lights are off. Babysitter is with her. No sign of forced entry." Ethan's breath left him in a shaky exhale. Babysitter. Claire's eyes flicked to him. She did not look guilty. She looked resolved. Ethan felt the ground shift. "You replaced my sitter." Claire did not deny it. "I placed someone I trust." Ethan's mind flashed through Lucy's last goodbye. A warm woman with a soft voice hair and a loose bun, carrying a tote bag. She had laughed when Lucy insisted Benny needed his own seat on the couch. It had seemed normal. Nothing was normal. Ethan's voice came out low. "What is her name?" Rachel Claire said. "She is trained. She is not there to hurt your daughter." Ethan's eyes burned with anger that had nowhere safe to land. "You never asked." Claire stepped close enough that Ethan could see the faint sheen of rain on her hairline from the dash through the garage. Her voice lowered, not soft, but direct. "If I asked, you would have said no," she said. "If I told you why, you would have thought I was insane. If I did nothing, your daughter might be gone already." Ethan wanted to hate her for that logic. He wanted to throw it back in her face. But the screen showed his street and the cars waited, and something inside him knew she was right. Claire turned back to the team. "We go quiet, no lights, no sirens. Miles and Rachel hold positions until we arrive. We are not engaging unless we have to." The room answered with quick nods, simple movements. No one looked surprised. No one looked afraid. Ethan did not fit here. He felt that in every beat of his heart. Claire handed him a compact flashlight and a small pouch. "That is for you," she said. Ethan looked inside. A spare battery, a thin plastic card, a folded piece of paper with a phone number and a keyring clip. He stared at the clip, then back at the golden key in his palm. The two did not belong together. One was a relic. The other was a tool. Claire watched him. "That key is valuable," she said. "Do not let it leave your hand." Ethan shoved it into his pocket and closed his fist around it through the fabric until he felt the bite again. Claire slid on her own vest, smooth and practiced. Then she reached under the table and pulled out a handgun. Ethan froze. Claire checked the magazine like it was as routine as checking the time, then holstered it beneath her jacket. Ethan's voice scraped out of him. "You carry that." "I do tonight," Claire said. Ethan's mouth went dry. "You are a CEO." Claire's eyes did not blink. "I am many things." A door opened at the far side of the room. A man stepped in, tall, broad face, unreadable. He had the look of someone who did not waste words. Claire nodded at him, "Driver ready." The man nodded back. "Car is staged." Claire turned to Ethan. "Stay close. Do exactly what I say." Ethan hated how much he wanted to protest. He hated how weak he felt. But the thought of Lucy's face, her sleepy smile, her small arms wrapping around his waist when he came home wiped out everything else. He nodded. They moved through the hallway and down a set of stairs. The building felt hollow, built for purpose, not comfort. At the bottom waited a black SUV with no logos, no shine, the kind of vehicle that existed to be forgettable. Claire climbed in beside Ethan, and the driver pulled out without any dramatic speed, just steady motion, as if they were leaving an office parking lot after a long day. Miles's voice returned in Ethan's ear. Vehicles still on the street. No movement. Claire spoke without looking at Ethan, voice quiet. They are watching, not hunting yet. They are waiting for something to confirm. Ethan stared out the window at passing lights. Confirm what? Claire's eyes stayed forward. That the evidence is moving. Ethan's throat tightened. And you think it is in my daughter's room? Claire glanced at him. I know it is. Ethan's stomach clenched. How? Claire looked away again, and for the first time her composure softened at the edges as if the next truth weighed more. Lena told me, she said. She called me the night before she died. Ethan's heart lurched. She called you. Claire nodded once. She said if she did not answer in the morning, I was to follow the plan. She said the key would get to you. She said you would not understand, but you would protect Lucy with your life. Ethan's eyes stung. He blinked hard. Lena had called him that night too, right before bed. She had said she was tired. She had said she loved him. She had asked him to make sure Lucy brushed her teeth even if she complained. Normal words. Ordinary words. Now he wondered what she had swallowed in silence. Ethan's voice cracked. Why did she not tell me? Claire's face did not change, but her voice softened. Because you would have tried to stop her, and she needed you alive. Ethan stared at his hands, then at the rain streaking down the SUV window. So you watched us. Claire exhaled. I kept my promise. The SUV turned into Ethan's neighborhood without slowing, just another car in the wet midnight. Claire leaned forward slightly, eyes scanning. Miles's voice came in again. You are 2 blocks out. Vehicles unchanged. Ethan's pulse hammered. Every yard closer made his skin tighter. The SUV turned a corner, then another. Ethan saw his street. The lamppost near the mailbox. The hedge Lucy liked to hide behind when playing tag. His chest clenched so hard it almost hurt to breathe. 2 cars sat near the curb exactly where the camera showed. One near the corner, one halfway down the block. The SUV did not stop in front of Ethan's house. It rolled past slow normal, then turned into a side street. The driver parked in darkness behind a row of cedars. Claire's voice came low. We approach on foot. Through the neighbor's yard, keep your head down. Ethan opened the door and stepped into cold rain. The air smelled like wet pine and soil. His neighborhood had always felt safe. Tonight it felt like a stage set waiting for the wrong actors. Claire moved with quiet certainty. 2 people from her team followed behind shadows with purpose. Ethan could hear his own breathing louder than everything else. They crossed behind a line of back fences. Claire lifted a latch on a gate like she had done it before. Ethan felt a chill at that, the idea of Claire knowing the hidden ways around his life. They moved through the neighbor's yard, stepping around toys left out in the rain. A plastic slide, a soccer ball half sunk into grass. Ethan's hands trembled. Lucy, he whispered and hated the thin sound of it. Miles's voice in his ear. Front cars still present. No movement. Rachel is inside. Ready. Claire reached the corner of Ethan's backyard fence. She looked over it for a second, then waved Ethan forward. They slipped into Ethan's yard. His back door came into view. Dark glass. Curtains drawn. The kitchen light off. Ethan's throat tightened. This was his home. He had painted that door last summer. Lucy had left a handprint on the bottom edge, and Ethan had never cleaned it. Claire knelt by the patio watching. One of her team members moved to the side window and glanced in. Claire spoke softly into her headset. Rachel confirmed status. A woman's voice answered, calm, familiar in an unsettling way. Lucy is asleep. Benny is in her arms. I am by the hallway. Ethan's eyes closed for a second at the sound. That was the babysitter. The woman who had read Lucy a bedtime story while Ethan ate dinner with Claire Whitmore and thought he was negotiating a promotion. Claire looked at Ethan. When we go in, you stay quiet. Lucy cannot scream. If she screams, the street knows. Ethan's jaw clenched. She will scream if she wakes up and sees strangers. Claire nodded. That is why you will be the first thing she sees. Ethan swallowed hard. I want my daughter in my arms. Claire's eyes held his. You will. They moved to the back door. Claire pulled a thin plastic card from her pocket and slid it along the frame. The lock clicked. Ethan stared shocked. Claire pushed the door open a crack, then wider. Warm air drifted out carrying the faint scent of laundry detergent and the cinnamon candle Lucy loved. That smell hit Ethan with such force, he almost lost his balance. Home, ordinary. Everything he was trying to protect. They slipped inside. Rachel stood in the hallway, the babysitter's soft sweater and gentle smile now framed by alert eyes and a posture that was not gentle at all. She nodded once at Claire, then at Ethan. She is in her room, Rachel whispered. Ethan moved without thinking. His feet carried him down the hallway past framed drawings, past the coat hooks Lucy never used, past the bathroom where Lena used to sing while brushing her teeth. He reached Lucy's door. It was cracked open the way he always left it. Inside a nightlight cast a pale glow on Lucy's bed. She lay curled on her side hair fanned across her pillow cheeks, soft with sleep. And there was Benny. The teddy bear was tucked under her chin, one ear worn, one paw stitched where Ethan had repaired it last year. Lucy's fingers were curled into its fur like it was an anchor. Ethan's chest tightened until it hurt. He stepped closer and knelt beside the bed. Lucy shifted eyelids fluttering, and Ethan froze, terrified of waking her. But she was already stirring, turning toward the familiar sound of his breathing. Her eyes opened halfway. Dad, she murmured, voice thick with sleep. Ethan's throat closed. Hey, Lou, he whispered. I am here. Lucy blinked, then smiled small and relieved. She reached for him, arms lifting. Ethan slid his arms around her and lifted her gently. Lucy's head dropped onto his shoulder like it belonged there. Benny dangled from her hand and she pulled him close again instinctively. Claire stood in the doorway watching. Ethan felt her presence like heat. Lucy's eyes opened wider as she noticed Claire. Confusion crossed her face. Then fear, quick and sharp. Ethan tightened his hold. It is okay, he whispered. You are safe. Lucy's gaze flicked between them. Why is Ms. Rachel here with you? Why is your boss here? Claire stepped forward slowly, hands visible, voice gentle in a way Ethan did not know she had. Hi, Lucy. Lucy's grip tightened on Benny. Are we in trouble? Ethan swallowed. He looked at Claire, silently demanding an answer that would not terrify his child. Claire spoke carefully. No, you're not in trouble. We just need to go somewhere else for a little while. Lucy's brow furrowed, trying to understand through sleep. But Benny has to come. Ethan's heart twisted. He kissed her hair. Benny comes, he said, always. Claire's eyes lowered to the bear. Her gaze sharpened for a fraction of a second like she was looking at something more than a toy. Then, from outside, a sound cut through the quiet. A car door closing, soft, controlled. Claire's head turned toward the front of the house. Rachel's voice came low from the hallway. Movement outside. Ethan's muscles locked. Lucy lifted her head slightly. What is that? Ethan held her tighter, forcing his voice to stay steady. Nothing you need to worry about. Claire's eyes met Ethan's. Her calm had returned hard and precise. We leave now, she said, back way. Ethan did not argue. He clutched Lucy with one arm, his other hand pressing against his pocket where the golden key sat like a secret burning through fabric. Lucy's fingers curled around Benny's fur. The house, his safe place, had become a trap. They moved, quiet, fast, controlled, and Ethan felt with terrifying clarity that the teddy bear in his daughter's arms was no longer just a comfort. It was a lock, and someone outside had come looking for the key. They moved through the kitchen with the lights off. Ethan knew every creak in the floorboards, every stubborn cabinet hinge, every spot on the tile that always felt colder under bare feet. He had walked this path half asleep 100 times, carrying Lucy from the couch to her bed after movie night. Tonight, his steps were silent and deliberate, like he was walking through a stranger's house. Lucy clung to him with one arm around his neck. Benny pressed to her chest. Her eyes were open now, glassy with confusion, her breathing shallow against Ethan's collarbone. Claire stayed close behind them. Rachel followed last, shutting doors without sound, leaving nothing open that might reflect light or reveal movement. One of Claire's team members slipped ahead and checked the back mudroom window with a quick glance, then raised 2 fingers, clear. Ethan's mind tried to split itself in 2. One part tracked distance exits angles. The other part stayed glued to Lucy's warm weight and the soft rise and fall of her breath. They reached the back door. Claire held up a hand. Everyone froze. From the front of the house, faint through walls and hallway, came the soft click of another car door. Then the murmur of voices low enough to be indistinct, but close enough to turn Ethan's blood cold. Lucy's face tightened. "Dad." Ethan pressed his cheek to her hair. "Shh," he whispered. "Hold on to me." Claire leaned toward Ethan, voice barely audible. "Do not go out the back gate," she said. "It is visible from the street. We go through the neighbors' shrubs, then cut behind the garages." Ethan nodded once. Claire eased the back door open. A narrow slice of cold air slid inside, rain and wet cedar. Somewhere nearby, water dripped steadily from a gutter. The backyard lay dark, the fence line a deeper black against the night. The neighbor's porch light was off. The world felt paused. They stepped out. Ethan adjusted Lucy higher on his hip. Benny's worn paw brushed Ethan's jacket as Lucy hugged the bear tighter. He felt the small tremor in her arms. She was trying to be brave. The knowledge hit Ethan like a weight. Claire led them along the fence close enough that Ethan's shoulder brushed damp wood. The grass squelched underfoot. Ethan's shoes sank slightly into mud near the patio steps. He avoided the spot where Lucy liked to hunt for worms in spring. They reached the corner where the fence met a hedge that separated Ethan's yard from the neighbors. Claire pulled back the branches and waved them through one at a time. Ethan ducked, careful not to snag Lucy's hair. Lucy's eyes widened as leaves brushed her face. She did not cry out. She held her breath and buried her face against Ethan's shoulder. Good girl, Ethan thought, and his heart broke all over again. On the other side, the neighbor's yard was a soft slope toward a line of garages. The rain had turned everything slick and dark. A wind chime tinkled faintly somewhere above them. Claire crouched, scanned, then moved again, low and controlled. Rachel stayed close to Ethan's flank, her attention flicking from shadows to windows to the gaps between buildings. Ethan heard Miles in his ear voice, tight now. "They are out of their vehicles." Claire spoke quietly into her headset. "Hold, do not engage unless they breach." Ethan kept moving. Every instinct told him to run, but Claire's pace was a steady glide and Ethan followed it because Lucy needed him steady. Lucy needed him not to panic. They reached the first garage, then cut behind it where the alley opened like a narrow throat between back fences. A row of trash bin has lined one wall. A motion sensor light hung above a back door, dark for now. Claire raised her hand again. Freeze. A figure moved at the far end of the alley. Just a shape, just motion, but it was enough. Ethan's muscles locked. Rachel's hand went to her waistband, where something solid hid beneath her sweater. Claire did not reach for her weapon. She turned her head slightly, listening. The figure stopped. A phone screen lit briefly, then went dark. The person turned and moved back the way they came. Claire exhaled once. She motioned forward. Ethan felt his own breath heaving loud in his ears. Lucy was still. Too still. She had stopped squirming entirely, as if her body understood the rules, even if her mind did not. They reached the waiting SUV at the end of the side street. The driver opened the rear door without stepping out just enough for Ethan to slide in. Rachel climbed in beside him. Claire took the front passenger seat. Ethan settled Lucy against the seat, keeping one arm around her. Lucy tucked Benny under her chin and stared at the dark window. "Where are we going?" she whispered. Ethan opened his mouth. No answer came. Claire turned slightly in the front seat and spoke over her shoulder, voice gentler than Ethan expected. "Somewhere quiet," she said. "Somewhere safe." Lucy frowned. "Why?" Claire paused, then said, "Because someone made a mistake, and we are fixing it." Lucy's eyes drifted to Ethan's face. She searched him the way children do when adults offer a half-truth. Ethan forced his expression into something calm. He stroked the back of her head. "You are doing so good," he whispered. "You hear me? So good." Lucy's mouth trembled, then steadied. "Benny is scared." Ethan swallowed. "Benny is brave." The SUV rolled forward. Ethan watched the street through the rear window as they pulled away. His house disappeared behind wet trees and darkness. A streetlight glowed over the corner. He thought he saw movement near his front walkway, but the angle changed and the view was gone. His chest tightened with a grief that felt ridiculous. It was just a house, drywall and paint and furniture, but it was where Lena had laughed, where Lucy had taken her first steps, where Ethan had tried to stitch his life back together. Now it was a place he could not protect. Miles's voice came through the earpiece again. "They breached your porch. Rachel's replacement unit is pulling back." Ethan's stomach dropped. "They are inside." Claire's voice stayed controlled. "Let them search an empty house." Ethan clenched his jaw so hard his teeth ached. He wanted to turn around. He wanted to tear through his front door and find them and make them leave. But Lucy was here. Lucy's small fingers were wrapped around Benny's ear, rubbing it in that familiar, nervous way. Ethan kept his arm around her and stared at the rain streaking down the window. The SUV made a series of turns that felt random, then merged onto the highway. Seattle's skyline glimmered in the distance, blurred by mist. Ethan saw the Space Needle for a moment, a thin silhouette against the night, then it vanished behind an overpass. Claire spoke quietly to the driver. The driver nodded. No names, no details. Everything stripped down to function. Ethan leaned closer to Rachel. "You said her name is Rachel," he whispered. "Who are you?" Rachel glanced at him, expression unreadable but not unkind. "I work for Claire," she murmured. "And tonight I work for Lucy." Ethan looked down at his daughter. Lucy's eyes were heavy now, sleep trying to claim her again. Her cheek rested against Benny's head. A wave of anger rose in Ethan, fresh and bright. Lena had placed their child in the center of this. Lena had lied to him. Lena had kept an entire life hidden behind bedtime stories and grocery lists. Ethan wanted to blame Claire because Claire had a face he could see. But Lena was the one who had chosen this. Or had she? Ethan's hand slid into his jacket pocket and found the golden key. He wrapped his fingers around it until it hurt. Pain was easier than questions. The SUV exited the highway and dipped into the industrial side of the city where warehouses sat like sleeping giants. The streets were wider, emptier. Sodium lights cast a sickly glow on wet asphalt. They entered a parking structure under an unmarked building and drove down a ramp into a lower level. The gate lifted without stopping. Ethan's pulse picked up again. The building did not look like anything. That was the point. The SUV parked, the engine cut. Claire turned in her seat and looked back at Ethan and Lucy. Her eyes flicked to Lucy first. "Careful," Lucy, Claire said softly. Lucy blinked half awake. "Yes." Claire kept her hands visible, her voice steady. "We are going inside for a little while. There are people who will help keep you safe." Lucy's gaze darted around. "Is this a police station?" "No," Claire said. Lucy's brow furrowed. "Are you in trouble?" Claire's mouth tightened. "Not tonight." Ethan watched the exchange uneasy. Claire was choosing her words like each one could detonate. Ethan shifted Lucy in his arms. "We are going inside," he told Lucy. Then you can rest." Lucy nodded slowly. She did not look convinced. She pressed Benny closer. They stepped out into cold concrete air. The garage smelled like damp and metal. Their footsteps echoed. Ethan tried to keep his steps quiet anyway. Claire led them to a door marked "Staff Only." A keypad, a biometric scanner. Ethan's stomach twisted at the familiarity. Claire had brought him here before. This place was real. The door opened and warm light spilled out. They moved through hallways and into a smaller room than the operations room Ethan had seen earlier. This room had a couch, a table, a kitchenette. It looked like somewhere you could keep a family for a night without making it feel like a cell. Claire nodded at another woman inside, older, calm eyes sharp. The woman stepped forward. "I am Nora," she said softly to Lucy. "Do you like hot chocolate?" Lucy's eyes widened slightly. "With marshmallows?" Nora smiled. "We can do that." Ethan hesitated. Every part of him wanted to keep Lucy in his arms forever. But Lucy was exhausted, her eyelids drooping. Rachel leaned in and whispered, "Let her sit. She needs to feel normal." Ethan eased Lucy onto the couch. Lucy kept Benny in her lap, fingers still rubbing his ear. Nora moved toward the kitchenette. Ethan turned to Claire, keeping his voice low. "You said my wife called you the night before she died." Claire's eyes held his. "Yes." Ethan's chest rose and fell. "What did she say?" Claire glanced toward Lucy, then back at Ethan. "She said there was no more time. She said she had evidence that would bury the person behind the leak. She said she could not bring it to me directly." Ethan's voice shook. "Why not?" Claire's jaw tightened. "Because she believed someone inside our circle was compromised." Ethan stared at her. "Someone close to you." Claire did not deny it. She looked away for a second, then back. She did not name the person. She said she could not. Ethan's hands curled into fists, and she chose a teddy bear. Claire's gaze dropped to Benny in Lucy's lap. She chose the one place no adult would search without destroying the one thing your child loved most. Ethan's throat tightened. "You are saying she used our daughter." Claire's expression sharpened, but her voice softened. "She used your daughter's love to hide the truth. She believed it would protect Lucy. She believed no one would dare take it." Ethan's voice rose before he could stop it. Someone dared take Lena's life. Lucy stirred at the sound. Ethan swallowed the rest of his anger and lowered his voice. Claire stepped closer. Her eyes were tired now, and Ethan realized she had been running on adrenaline and discipline, not comfort. "Ethan," she said quietly, "I know what this feels like." Ethan let out a bitter breath. "Do you? Did you lose a spouse?" Claire flinched just a flicker. "No," she said. "I lost people." Ethan stared at her, and something in her face made him believe she meant it. Nora returned with a mug of hot chocolate and a small handful of marshmallows on a napkin. Lucy sat up, distracted by sweetness, and took the mug with both hands. "Thank you," Lucy whispered. Nora smiled. "You are welcome, sweetheart." Lucy looked down at Benny, then up at Ethan. "Dad," she said softly, "why is Benny important?" Ethan froze. Claire's eyes narrowed slightly, watching Lucy like she was listening for a coded message. Ethan forced himself to breathe. "Benny is important because you love him," Ethan said. Lucy studied him. "Mom loved him too." The words hit Ethan like a punch. He nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes," he said, "Mom did." Lucy's gaze drifted to Claire. "Did you know my mom?" Claire's face softened at the edges. "Yes," she said, "I did." Lucy tilted her head. "Did she like you?" A beat of silence. Claire's voice came out quiet, honest. "She respected me." Lucy accepted that with a child's logic and took a sip of hot chocolate. A marshmallow stuck to her upper lip. She licked it away, then yawned. Ethan's heart squeezed. Lucy was trying so hard to stay awake, as if sleep might let danger in. Nora stood and touched Lucy's shoulder gently. "There is a bed in the next room," she said. "You can bring Benny." Lucy nodded slowly. She stood swaying and Ethan rose with her. "I will take her," Ethan said, and his voice left no room for argument. Nora stepped aside. Ethan carried Lucy into the small bedroom. It was simple clean, with soft blankets and a nightlight already plugged in. Someone had planned for children. Ethan laid Lucy down and tucked the blanket around her. Lucy turned onto her side and hugged Benny tight. Ethan brushed hair from her forehead. "I am right outside," he whispered. Lucy's eyes fluttered. "Promise." Ethan swallowed. "Promise." He stepped back to the doorway and watched her until her breathing slowed and her face softened into sleep. Then he turned back into the main room where Claire stood waiting, arms crossed, loosely, posture controlled. Ethan's voice came out low, raw. "Tell me the truth," he said. "All of it, not pieces." Claire held his gaze. For a moment she looked like she might refuse. Then she nodded once. "The truth is messy," she said quietly. "And it is going to hurt." Ethan clenched the key in his pocket. "It already does." Claire's eyes flicked toward the closed bedroom door, then back to Ethan. Her voice stayed measured. "Lena was part of a covert security program inside Whitmore Dynamics," she said. "We were investigating corporate espionage tied to our oncology research. She was embedded under a harmless title because that is how you keep an investigator alive." Ethan's stomach churned. "She lied to me every day." Claire did not argue. "She compartmentalized," she said. "Because if you knew, you would have carried it on your face. People like the ones outside your house learn to read faces." Ethan shook his head slowly, disbelief and fury mixing until he could not tell them apart. "And you fired her to protect her." Claire's jaw tightened. "Yes." Ethan's voice sharpened. "Then why did she die?" Claire's eyes went hard, the softness gone. "Because someone found her anyway." Ethan took a step closer. "Who?" Claire held his gaze without blinking. "I do not know yet." The air between them felt heavy with everything unsaid. Ethan's grief pushed against his ribs, demanding a shape to hit. Claire stood there, steady, offering none. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "You said they want the evidence." Claire nodded. Ethan's eyes flicked toward the bedroom door. "And the codes are in Benny." Claire's gaze followed his. "Yes." Ethan's throat tightened. "Then my daughter is holding the most dangerous thing in this city." Claire's voice stayed quiet. "Tonight, she is also holding the safest hiding place." Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. He wanted to argue, but he could not. Lucy's bear sat in the only place that still felt sacred. A radio on the table crackled. A voice came through, sharp and controlled. "Claire, update." Claire stepped to the radio. "Go." The voice replied, "Your house is compromised." 2 subjects entered. "They are searching room by room. No sign they found anything yet." Claire's eyes did not change. "Copy." Ethan stared at the radio as if it could reveal the men's faces. He imagined them in Lucy's room, touching her toys, opening drawers, lifting blankets. His hands shook again. Claire turned back to Ethan. "We cannot go back," she said. Ethan's voice came out hoarse. "That was my home." Claire held his gaze. "Your home is where Lucy is breathing." Ethan swallowed hard. The truth of that settled into his bones. Claire reached into her pocket and pulled out a small item wrapped in tissue. She placed it on the table and unfolded the tissue carefully. It was a thin chain with a simple pendant tarnished at the edges. Ethan recognized it immediately. Lena's necklace. His vision blurred. That was on her. Claire's voice stayed steady, but her eyes looked strained. "It was in the evidence bag," she said. "I took it before her parents collected the rest." Ethan's throat tightened until it felt like he might choke. "Why?" Claire's gaze held his. "Because she asked me to keep it safe," she said. "And because I thought one day you might need proof that she was not who you believed she was." Ethan stared at the necklace. The metal caught the light and flashed dull gold. He remembered Lena fastening it in the mirror fingers, moving quickly like it was part of her armor. Ethan's voice dropped. She planned for this. Claire did not deny it. She looked toward the bedroom door again, then back. She planned for you to survive it, she said. Ethan's hands trembled as he reached for the necklace. He did not put it on. He simply held it, feeling the small weight against his palm. He looked at Claire. "If you do not know who did it," he said, "then you do not know who is coming." Claire's eyes narrowed. "I know what they want," she said, "and I know what they will do when they realize Lucy has it." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Then we do not open that bear," he said. "Not while she is holding it like a lifeline." Claire's voice stayed calm. "We do not have to do it while she is awake." Ethan stared at the closed bedroom door, guilt twisting in his stomach. The thought of cutting into Benny felt like cutting into Lucy's last connection to her mother. Claire watched him, her face unreadable. Then she spoke quieter. "Ethan," she said, "I have carried this for a long time. I did not bring you here to break you. I brought you here because Lena believed you could hold the truth without letting it destroy Lucy." Ethan's eyes burned. He turned his face away for a moment, breathing through it. When he looked back, he saw Claire watching him with something that was not pity. It was steadier than that, like respect, like burden shared. Ethan's voice came out low. "Then start from the beginning," he said. "Tell me who Lena really was." Claire nodded once, and in the quiet room with Lucy asleep behind a thin wall and Benny tucked under her arm, Claire began to speak. Claire began with a detail Ethan did not expect. She hated guns, Claire said. Ethan looked up from Lena's necklace in his hand. The chain lay across his palm like a thin line of history. "That does not fit the version of her you are selling." Claire did not flinch at the word selling. She sat on the edge of a chair across from him, shoulders squared, hands folded, as if she could keep control by keeping her body still. "It fit," Claire replied. She hated them because she respected what they did to people. She had no romance about violence. She never treated it like a game. Ethan stared at the table at the radio at the bland walls meant to calm a frightened child. "Then why was she in your covert program?" Claire's eyes softened at the edges just enough to suggest something personal beneath her steel. "Because she was good at disappearing in plain sight," Claire said. "Because she could walk into a room and make you forget you were watching her. And because she cared about outcomes, not credit." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She cared about our family." "She did," Claire said. "She also cared about what the research meant. She believed people deserved a chance at surviving. She believed our work was worth protecting." Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to argue. He wanted to say his wife had not asked to become a target. He wanted to say she should have chosen her daughter over a corporate mission. But Lena had always been stubborn about doing the right thing, even when the right thing was hard. Ethan remembered her stopping on the sidewalk to help a stranger with groceries. Remembered her calling a school board member because she thought a teacher was being treated unfairly. Remembered her defending an intern at a holiday party when a manager got handsy after too many drinks. Lena had never been timid. Ethan looked at Claire. When did this start? Claire's gaze flicked toward the bedroom door, as if she could see Lucy through the wall. Then she looked back. 2 years before the layoff, she said. We had internal signs. Anomalies. Data pulls at strange hours. Small gaps that made no sense. I built a quiet team to investigate because the moment you announce an investigation, the leak changes shape. Ethan's hands clenched around the necklace, and Lena was already in the company. She applied for a design role, Claire said. Her portfolio was strong. Her references were clean. Her background check came back ordinary. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Was that a lie too? Claire shook her head. No. She really could do the work, that was the point. She built covers that held up because they were not false. Ethan felt his stomach twist. The Lena who sat on the floor with Lucy and made paper crowns. The Lena who designed birthday invitations and laughed at her own typo. The Lena who stayed up late, eyes bright, tweaking a layout for a fundraiser flyer. That Lena could have been real and still not the whole story. How did you even find her? Ethan asked. Claire's mouth tightened. She found me. Ethan looked up sharply. What? Claire's voice lowered. She noticed patterns, the same way I did. She quietly flagged something in the workflow system and routed it through a channel only a few people knew existed. That channel led to me. Ethan's anger stuttered, then resumed with a different heat. So she volunteered. She volunteered, Claire confirmed. I tried to talk her out of it. Ethan's laugh was short and bitter. You talk people out of risky work. Claire's eyes held his. I did with her. A silence settled between them, thick with the kind of truth that did not resolve anything. Ethan looked down at the necklace again, fingers tracing the tarnished edge of the pendant. You said the sickness was symptoms, Ethan said. Exposure to what? Claire's jaw tightened. She answered anyway. Lena believed someone was using low-dose exposure to make her look medically compromised, Claire said. To make her seem unreliable, to make her step back. She did not step back. Ethan's breath caught. So those hospital visits were part of the cover and part of an attack. Claire nodded once. Yes. Ethan's mind flashed to Lena sitting on the edge of the bathtub, pale, sweating, insisting she was fine. To Ethan, begging her to go to the ER. To Lena, squeezing his hand too hard and whispering, I am okay. I just need sleep. She had been lying, or protecting him, or both. Ethan stared at Claire, voice strained. Did you know she was being poisoned? Claire's eyes flickered, the first honest crack in her composure. I suspected, she said. I did not have proof until after she was dead. Ethan's throat tightened. His grief pressed up hard behind his ribs, turning his breath shallow. He stood abruptly and paced 2 steps, then stopped because the room was too small to hold his anger. Lucy shifted in the bedroom, a soft sound through the wall. Ethan froze listening. The quiet returned. He lowered his voice. So she calls you the night before she dies. She tells you the codes are hidden, and then she is killed. And you keep it from me for 3 years. Claire's gaze stayed steady, but her voice had a faint rasp now. I kept it from you because you were visible, she said. You were in the company. You were on email threads. You were on calendars. If someone watched you, they saw your pain. They saw your routines. You were predictable. Ethan's eyes burned. And tonight I am not predictable anymore. Claire nodded. Tonight you are moving. Ethan looked toward the bedroom door again. Tonight my daughter is moving. Claire leaned forward slightly. Ethan, I did not come to you because I wanted to control you. I came because I ran out of time. The key was my last move that did not involve ripping your life apart. Ethan's jaw clenched. My life is already ripped apart. Claire held his gaze. I know. A soft step came from the hallway. Nora appeared at the doorway, expression calm but alert. She is asleep, Nora whispered, deep. Ethan nodded once. His chest hurt with relief and dread at the same time. Sleep meant Lucy was safe for the moment. Sleep also meant he could make choices she did not understand. Claire stood. We need to relocate, she said quietly. Ethan's head snapped up. Why? Claire glanced at a small screen on the wall that displayed a map and a few discrete markers. She did not point. She did not need to. Your house is compromised, Claire said. This building is not compromised, but it is connected to me. If someone is patient, they will look for patterns. We do not give them patterns. Ethan's mouth went dry. Where are we going? Claire looked at him. Somewhere that does not look like me. Ethan did not know what that meant, but he understood the core. Less attention. Less trace. More distance. Rachel appeared in the doorway behind Nora, quiet as a shadow. She nodded once at Claire. Vehicle is ready. Ethan glanced toward the bedroom door. We cannot wake her and drag her. Claire shook her head. We can, she said. Gently, she will sleep through it if we do it right. Ethan's stomach tightened. But he had carried Lucy from car seat to bed 100 times, her body warm and loose in his arms. He could do it now. He would do it. Nora moved toward the bedroom, first opening the door slowly. A dim nightlight spilled into the main room. Ethan followed, heart hammering. Lucy lay curled around Benny. Her hair was mussed. Her face was slack with sleep. Ethan stood over her for a second, memorizing the sight like it could protect him. Then he slid one arm under her back and the other beneath her knees. Lucy stirred faintly and made a small sound into Benny's fur. Ethan whispered, "I have you." Lucy's grip tightened on the bear, then relaxed again. He carried her out, careful, slow, keeping her head tucked against his shoulder. Claire led them through a side corridor Ethan had not seen before, past a door that opened into a private stairwell. The air changed as they descended, cooler, less sterile, more like a basement than a corporate facility. At the bottom, a second SUV waited in a loading bay. Plain. Mud splashed along the sides. The kind of vehicle that could be anyone's. Rachel opened the rear door and cleared a space. Ethan climbed in with Lucy, settling her gently across the seat. Benny stayed locked in her arms. Ethan tucked a blanket over her and smoothed her hair. Claire sat in the front passenger seat again. Nora did not come. She stayed behind, the kind of person who faded into a building as if she belonged to it. The SUV rolled out into the wet night. Seattle fell away in layers of streetlights and glass. The freeway carried them south, then east, then onto darker roads where trees crowded the shoulders and the sky felt lower. Rain softened to a mist. The city's noise became a faint memory behind them. Ethan kept his hand on Lucy's back, feeling her breath, counting it without meaning to. He watched her fingers twitch around Benny's ear, even in sleep. Claire spoke quietly from the front, not turning around. "She does that when she is anxious," she said. Ethan swallowed. "She has done it since Lena died." Claire nodded, as if she had seen it, as if she had watched Lucy's grief from a distance Ethan could not imagine. After a long stretch of silence, Ethan asked the question that had been sitting like a stone in his throat. "Why did Lena call you an ice queen?" Claire's shoulders shifted slightly. It was almost a laugh, but not quite. "She said I cared too much and I hid it behind rules," Claire replied. Ethan stared at the back of her head. "Did she say that with affection?" Claire's voice softened, yes. Ethan's chest tightened. Lena had given pieces of herself to Claire that Ethan had never been allowed to hold. Not because Lena loved Ethan less, but because she was carrying something that could not fit inside a marriage without breaking it. The SUV turned onto a narrow road lined with tall pines. A lake appeared through the trees, black and smooth, reflecting faint starlight. The driver slowed, then turned down a gravel driveway that wound toward a cabin set back from the water. It was not fancy. It looked lived in. A porch light glowed warm. Curtains drawn. The kind of place families rented for weekends. The kind of place no one would associate with a billionaire CEO. They parked behind the cabin, partially hidden by trees. Claire stepped out first, scanning the darkness. Rachel moved with her eyes tracking angles. Ethan climbed out carefully, then lifted Lucy again. She stirred, face pressing into his shoulder, but did not wake. Inside, the cabin smelled like pine and old wood. A fireplace sat cold, a small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, a worn sofa with a folded quilt. Claire turned on a single lamp and kept the rest of the lights off. Ethan carried Lucy into the nearest bedroom and laid her down. Lucy rolled onto her side. Benny still clutched tight and sighed in her sleep. Ethan stood over her for a second, then walked back into the main room. Claire had already opened a duffel bag on the table. She pulled out equipment with quiet efficiency, a small scanner, a compact toolkit, gloves, a thin laptop sealed in a protective case. Ethan stared. "You brought that here." Claire looked up. "I bring it everywhere." Ethan's voice dropped. "So now we cut open my daughter's bear." Claire did not answer immediately. She placed the scanner on the table, then set a pair of gloves beside it. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice as if Lucy could hear through walls. "That bear is the last thing Lena gave her." Claire's gaze held his steady and sober. "I know," she said. Ethan's hands clenched. "If you damage it, she will break." Claire's face softened the smallest shift. "We will fix it," she said. "We will put it back together so well she will not know where we touched it." Ethan stared at her, searching for arrogance, for cold manipulation. He did not find it. He found determination and something like regret. Claire nodded toward the bedroom. "She cannot carry this forever," she said. "Not if it is what I think it is." Ethan swallowed. "Tell me exactly what you think it is." Claire looked down at the table, then back up. "A physical storage device," she said. "Small. Hidden. Something the leak's buyer would recognize if they found it. Something Lena could conceal in stuffing and stitches." Ethan's stomach churned. "So we are destroying her comfort to extract your evidence." Claire's eyes narrowed slightly. "It is not my evidence," she said. "It is Lena's last act." Ethan's throat tightened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the golden key. He set it on the table with a faint clink. Lena's tiny photo frame swung, catching the lamplight. Claire's gaze flicked to it, and for a moment her face looked unguarded. Ethan took a breath. "Fine," he whispered. "But we do it carefully. And if Lucy wakes up, I stop you." Claire nodded once. Agreed. Ethan turned and went to Lucy's room. He stood at the foot of her bed for a moment, watching her sleep. Then he reached for Benny. Lucy's hand tightened reflexively, a faint frown pulling at her brow. Ethan froze, heart-pounding. He waited, whispering, "It is me." Lucy's grip loosened. Benny slid free. Ethan carried the bear back into the main room like it was fragile glass. He placed Benny on the table between them. The bear looked smaller under the lamplight. Worn fur, stitched paw, one ear slightly thinner than the other. A child's love made visible. Claire put on gloves. Ethan did not. He rested a hand on Benny's back, feeling the familiar softness, remembering Lucy learning to walk with the bear tucked under one arm, tripping and laughing. Remembering Lena holding Benny up in the store and whispering, "This one, Ethan. This is the one." Claire lifted the scanner and passed it slowly over Benny, starting at the head, moving down the torso along the arms, then the legs. The device emitted a faint hum. Ethan held his breath. Claire's eyes sharpened as the scanner beeped once, then again quicker. She stopped over Benny's left foot. The beeping sped up. Claire's posture stiffened. Ethan's voice came out low. "What?" Claire set the scanner down slowly, as if sudden movement could set something off. "There is something in here," she said. Ethan stared at Benny's foot. It looked ordinary, faded fabric, a seam that had been handled 1,000 times. Claire's gloved fingers pressed gently along the foot, feeling for an edge. Her eyes narrowed, focused. She found it a tiny, hard shape beneath the stuffing. Ethan's stomach dropped. Claire looked up at him. Her voice was controlled, but there was a new tension in it. "This is not storage," she said. Ethan's mouth went dry. "Then what is it?" Claire's fingers pinched the seam careful, and she lifted the bear's foot closer to the light. "A tracker," she said. Ethan stared at Benny's left foot as if the bear had grown teeth. "A tracker," he repeated, and his voice sounded far away to his own ears. Claire kept the bear under the lamp, her gloved fingers working the seam with careful pressure. "Small," she said. "Passive until it is close enough to a receiver, or active with a low signal. Either way, it is telling someone where this bear is." Ethan felt a wave of nausea. He pictured Lucy in her bed, curled around Benny. He pictured her walking into school with the bear shoved into her backpack because she could not stand leaving it behind. He pictured the bear sitting on a chair at the kitchen table while Lucy ate cereal as if it was part of the family. All that time it had been broadcasting. Ethan's hand pressed against the table edge hard enough to make his knuckles ache. Lena put it there. Claire's eyes stayed on the seam. Maybe she said, or someone else did. "The stitching looks clean. Too clean for a toy that old." Ethan's throat tightened, so someone touched it. Claire did not argue. She slid a thin tool under the seam and eased it open, exposing a small black capsule sewn into the fabric lining. Ethan leaned closer, anger building in his chest until it hurt. "If the bear is tracked, then they can find us. Claire's voice was quiet. They already did. The words landed, and the cabin seemed to shrink around them. Ethan lifted his head. The lamp's light made the windows look like dark mirrors. Outside, the lake was a sheet of black glass. The trees beyond the porch stood still, but the stillness did not feel peaceful. It felt like a held breath. Claire's eyes went to the front window. She did not move quickly. She moved precisely. Rachel appeared from the hallway, silent, alert. She glanced at Benny, then at Claire's face. "You found it." Claire nodded once. "We move." Ethan's pulse slammed. "Lucy." Ethan was already halfway to the bedroom before Claire finished speaking. He pushed the door open softly. Lucy slept on her side, one arm curled into the pillow where Benny usually was. Her brow furrowed faintly, as if her body noticed something missing even while her mind stayed under. Ethan crossed the room and slid his arms under her, lifting her carefully. Lucy made a small sound, and her eyes fluttered open. "Dad," she mumbled, confused. Ethan pressed his lips to her hair. "We are going for a ride," he whispered. "Stay sleepy, okay?" Lucy blinked, trying to focus. "Benny." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Benny is coming," he said quickly. "He's right here." He did not have Benny. He hated that. He carried Lucy back into the main room, holding her against his chest. Her small hands clutched his shirt as she woke up more. Claire reached for Benny on the table and held it out to Ethan. He took the bear and tucked it against Lucy's side so she could feel it. Lucy's fingers closed around the worn fur like a reflex. Her breathing eased. Claire's gaze flicked to the window again. Her jaw tightened. Rachel moved to the cabin's front door and listened. She held up a hand, fingers spread, then slowly lowered them into a tight fist. Movement. Ethan's throat went dry. How close? Rachel's voice was barely more than air. On the property. Claire pulled a small device from her bag and pressed a button. A faint beep, then silence. She looked at Rachel. "Back," Claire said. Rachel nodded once. Claire turned to Ethan. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. Out the back, she said, "Dock, boat." Ethan's grip tightened on Lucy. "Boat." Claire moved to a cabinet near the kitchen and opened it. Inside was a compact handgun and a flashlight. She took both without hesitation. Ethan's blood turned cold. "You are staying." Claire looked at him, and in that second, Ethan saw something he had not seen before. Not the CEO, not the ice. Just a woman who had made a choice long ago and was still paying for it. "I will buy you time," she said. Ethan shook his head, a sharp denial. "No, we go together." Claire stepped closer until her voice could stay low. "If we all funnel out at once, they will follow. If they see me, they hesitate. They know who I am, they will try to take me, not shoot immediately. That hesitation gives you distance." Ethan's throat tightened. "They might kill you." Claire did not look away. "They already killed Lena." Lucy stirred in Ethan's arms, suddenly more awake as tension seeped into her skin. "Dad," she whispered. "What is happening?" Ethan forced a smile that felt like it would break his face. "Adventure," he said softly. "Remember." Lucy's eyes searched his, then drifted to Claire, Miss Whitmore. Claire lowered herself to Lucy's level, keeping the gun hidden behind her leg. Her voice softened. "Hi, Lucy," she said. "You're being very brave." Lucy's mouth trembled. "Our bad guys here." Claire held her gaze with an honesty children understood. "Yes," she said, "but your dad is getting you out." Lucy hugged Benny tighter. "Benny is scared." Claire's eyes flicked to the bear, then back to Lucy. "Then you keep him close," she said. "You are his safe place." Lucy nodded, solemn, like it made sense. A sharp sound came from the front of the cabin. Not loud, but wrong. The scrape of something against wood, a soft clink like metal touching glass. Claire's posture shifted. "Go," she breathed. Ethan did not wait. He moved through the back door into the night, Rachel right behind him. Rain had stopped, but the air was wet and cold. The dock was a dark line stretching into the lake. Ethan ran careful not to bounce Lucy too hard. Lucy clung to him, fully awake now, her breath quick against his neck. At the dock, a small motorboat waited low in the water, tied to a cleat. Ethan lowered Lucy onto the bench seat, keeping one hand on her shoulder so she would not slip. "Sit," he whispered. "Hold Benny." Lucy wrapped both arms around the bear and nodded, eyes wide. Ethan dropped to his knees and felt under the seat, fingers fumbling through cold metal and damp fabric until he found keys. He yanked them out and jammed them into the ignition. Behind him, the cabin erupted in noise. A crash of a door forced open. A voicemail sharp. Another voice answering. Then Claire's voice, clear and commanding. "Security," she called. "Stop where you are." Lucy flinched. "Dad." Ethan's hands shook as he turned the key. The engine sputtered, coughed, then died. Ethan's stomach dropped. He turned the key again. The engine coughed. Another crash. A shout, then the first gunshot. The sound slapped across the lake, flat and echoing. Lucy screamed. Ethan's heart lurched. He grabbed Lucy's face gently, forcing her to look at him. "No screaming," he whispered, voice tight. "Listen to me. You are okay. You are with me." Lucy's eyes filled with tears. Her small fingers crushed Benny's fur. "Fireworks," she whispered, trying to believe him. Yes, Ethan lied, and the lie tasted like ash. He turned the key again. The engine caught this time, rough and loud in the night. Ethan shoved the throttle forward. The boat jerked, then began to pull away from the dock, slow at first. He hesitated, half rising, head turning toward the cabin. Claire. He could not leave her. Not after she dragged him into the truth. Not after she stood alone between his daughter and death. A shape appeared at the end of the dock, moving fast. Ethan tensed, ready to throw himself between Lucy and whatever came. Then the shape came into the light, and Ethan saw blonde hair, a dark jacket, a limp. "Claire." "Go," she called, breathless. Ethan's chest released in a shaky gasp. Claire reached the boat and grabbed the side, pulling herself in with a grimace. Ethan caught her arm and steadied her as she climbed aboard. A fresh burst of gunfire cracked from the cabin. Bullets hit the water behind them, sharp splashes lit faintly by moonlight. Claire ducked and shoved Ethan's shoulder down. "Down," she hissed. Lucy curled into the seat, hugging Benny like a shield. Ethan lowered his body, one hand on the throttle, one arm reaching to cover Lucy without letting go of the boat's control. The boat surged forward as he pushed the throttle harder. Water sprayed up. The dock fell away into darkness. Claire leaned against the side of the boat, breathing hard. Her face was pale. One hand pressed against her ribs. Ethan saw the dark stain spreading under her fingers. "Claire," he said, panic cutting through his voice. "You are hit." Claire's jaw clenched. "Graze," she said, like the word could make it true. Ethan's eyes flicked to the stain again. "That is not a graze." Claire's voice sharpened. "Keep driving." Lucy lifted her head, shaking. "Miss Whitmore." Claire forced her face to soften. It looked like pain pulled the corners tight anyway. "I am okay," Claire told her. "I have had worse paper cuts." Lucy stared, not convinced, then looked down at Benny and whispered something Ethan could not hear. The lake opened around them, black and wide, the shoreline a jagged silhouette. The cabin behind them disappeared as the boat cut through darkness, the engine's noise swallowed by distance. Ethan kept his eyes forward, scanning for shapes on the water, for lights, for any hint they were being followed. Where Ethan said through clenched teeth, "Where are we going?" Claire's breathing was controlled but strained. "Across," she said. "There is a second place. Hillside, reinforced." Ethan swallowed. "How far?" Claire did not answer with a number. She pointed, handshaking slightly toward a darker patch along the opposite shore where the tree line dipped. "There," she said. The boat thudded over a wake. Ethan tightened his grip. Behind them, faint but distinct, came the sound of another engine. Ethan's spine went rigid. "Claire." Claire turned her head slightly, listening. Her eyes narrowed. "Faster," she said. Ethan pushed the throttle to its limit. The boat's nose lifted and slapped down, spray hitting his face, cold and sharp. Lucy cried softly, face pressed into Benny. Claire reached across, braced herself with one hand, and pulled Lucy closer with the other, shielding her with her body as best she could. Ethan's throat tightened at the sight. Claire Whitmore, bleeding, choosing to put herself between a child and bullets. The sound behind them grew louder, then shifted, as if the pursuing boat turned, trying to angle closer. A beam of light flicked on behind them, a flashlight or a spotlight catching the wake. Ethan's heart hammered. They are on the lake. Claire's voice turned flat. Yes? Another gunshot cracked. The splash landed closer, a sharp burst of water to the right. Lucy gasped. Ethan leaned left, using the boat's movement to zig slightly without losing speed. He kept his eyes on the approaching shoreline on the dark notch Claire had pointed out. The hill rose out of the trees like a shoulder. Beneath it, a low structure blended into rock and brush lights off nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. A dock extended from a narrow inlet. Ethan steered toward it, the boat's engine roaring, the water churning. As they neared, a small light blinked twice on the dock, then went dark. A signal. Ethan cut speed at the last second and swung the boat alongside. The hull bumped wood. Claire grabbed a cleat with her good hand and looped the rope with fast precision despite her limp. A door in the hillside opened. A man in dark clothing stepped out, raising a hand. "Claire," he called. "Open," Claire snapped. The man moved quickly. Another person appeared behind him. They rushed to the dock. Ethan lifted Lucy, first stepping onto the dock with her clutched tight. Lucy's legs wrapped around his waist, her face pressed into his shoulder. Benny dangled from one hand, then Lucy yanked it back up, hugging it again like it was her heartbeat. Ethan turned back for Claire. Claire tried to stand fully and swayed. Her breath hitched. Ethan reached for her. "I have you." Claire's eyes met his. For a second, something unguarded flashed there. Gratitude, maybe, or surprise that someone was catching her. Then her gaze flicked past him to the lake. The pursuing boat's light swept the water, searching. "Inside," Claire said. Ethan helped her onto the dock, one arm hooked under her shoulder. She hissed softly through her teeth as her weight shifted. The man from the hillside hurried closer and took Claire's other side. "You are bleeding." "I know," Claire said. They moved fast, Lucy in Ethan's arms, Claire between Ethan and the other man, the group pushing toward the open door. The moment they stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind them. Locks clicked. Heavy bolts slid into place with a sound that made Ethan's chest loosen by a fraction. They entered a small entry room lit with low, warm lights. Concrete walls, clean air. A faint scent of antiseptic. Security monitors mounted above a desk showed the lake outside from multiple angles. Ethan saw the pursuing boat slow near the inlet, light sweeping. It circled once, then moved on frustrated, the beam fading into darkness. Ethan's knees went weak with delayed shock. Lucy finally lifted her face. Her cheeks were wet. She clutched Benny so tightly her knuckles were white. "Dad," she whispered, "is Miss Whitmore a superhero?" Ethan swallowed, eyes burning. He looked at Claire. Her face was pale now, jaw clenched, sweat at her hairline. Claire managed a small smile, strained but real. "No, sweetheart," she said. "Just someone who promised your mom." The words hit Ethan like a punch to the ribs. He held Lucy tighter, then gently set her down on a bench, keeping a hand on her shoulder so she would not drift away in fear. The man who helped Claire guided her to a chair. Another person appeared with a medical kit and began cutting Claire's jacket fabric near her ribs. Claire did not protest. Her eyes stayed on Lucy, checking her as if pain mattered less than the child's breathing. Ethan stood there, drenched and shaking, holding Benny in one hand now because Lucy had shoved the bear toward him without realizing. He stared at the teddy bear like it was a grenade, a tracker inside its foot. Someone followed it to the cabin. Someone shot at them on the lake. Ethan looked at Claire as the medic pressed gauze to her side. "You said Lena chose the safest place," Ethan said, voice low and raw. Claire winced as tape pulled at her skin. Her eyes lifted to his. "She did," Claire said, "until someone made it unsafe." Ethan's grip tightened on Benny. The bear's stitched smile looked back at him, soft and innocent like it had never betrayed anyone. Ethan finally understood something he did not want to understand. Benny was not just hiding evidence. Benny was also the reason they could not stay still. The hillside safe house was quiet in a way that felt engineered. No ticking clocks, no humming refrigerator. Even the air seemed filtered, stripped of scent and sound. The only noise came from the lake monitor's faint static and the soft beep of a system checking itself every few seconds. Ethan sat on the edge of a bench with Lucy tucked against his side. She had stopped crying, but her face stayed tight like she was afraid the tears would come back if she blinked too hard. Benny rested in her lap again, both arms wrapped around him like a seatbelt. Claire sat across the small entry room in a reinforced chair while the medic finished bandaging her ribs. The bullet had torn through fabric and skin, leaving an ugly diagonal cut that looked too real to be dismissed. Claire's jaw stayed clenched throughout, not from pain alone, from restraint. A man Ethan had not met before stood near the security desk, tall and compact with a gray buzz cut and the posture of someone who slept in boots. "Name is Conrad," he said, voice low, directed to Ethan. "I run this site." Ethan nodded once. His mind felt too full for small talk. Conrad looked at Lucy, then at Benny, then back to Claire. "You sure that bear is still in play?" Claire's gaze went to Benny. "Yes." Conrad's expression tightened. "Then we have minutes, not hours." Lucy heard the word bear and hugged Benny closer. Her chin lifted, eyes flashing with child logic that had no patience for adult fear. "You are not cutting him," she said. Ethan's chest tightened. He slid his arm around her shoulders. "No one is cutting him right now," he said softly. Claire's eyes flicked to Ethan, then to Lucy. She shifted forward a fraction, careful of her bandage. "Lucy," she said gently, "can I talk to you for a second?" Lucy narrowed her eyes. "You are the boss," she said, as if that explained everything. Claire nodded. "I am, and I need to ask you something important." Lucy's fingers rubbed Benny's ear, fast and nervous. Ethan watched the tiny motion and felt his throat close. Claire kept her voice calm. "Did your mom ever tell you to keep Benny safe?" Lucy's gaze dropped to the bear's stitched face. She nodded slowly. She said Benny was a secret. Ethan froze. Claire's eyes sharpened. "What kind of secret?" Lucy looked up at Ethan, then back to Claire. Her voice lowered instinctively, copying the tone adults used when they thought secrets lived in whispers. "She said bad guys wanted something from work," Lucy murmured. "She said Benny was the best hiding spot because no one thinks kids have important stuff." Ethan's stomach flipped. Claire's face stayed composed, but something in her eyes shifted. Relief, anger, grief, all packed tight and held back by discipline. Ethan swallowed hard. "Lucy," he said, keeping his voice gentle. "Did Mom say anything else?" Lucy thought for a moment. "She said if anyone ever tried to take Benny, I should scream and bite." Ethan blinked despite himself. A ragged laugh almost escaped, then died before it could form. Lena had trained their child for a war Ethan never knew existed. Lucy's mouth trembled, then she steadied it. Is Mom's secret why people were shooting? Ethan's heart twisted. He pulled her closer. "Yes," he said, because lying felt impossible now. "But you did nothing wrong. None of this is your fault." Lucy looked down at Benny again. Benny did not do anything wrong either. Claire nodded once. "No," she said, "he did not." Conrad cleared his throat softly. "We need the device out of the foot," he said, nodding toward Benny. "If it is active, it is still talking." Lucy stiffened. Ethan stood before Lucy could protest, lifting Benny gently from her arms. Lucy's hand shot out, trying to grab the bear back. Ethan crouched, meeting her eyes. "I am not taking him away," he said. "I am keeping him safe. You will be able to hold him again in a minute." Lucy's eyes filled, but she nodded, biting her lip hard. Ethan carried Benny to the security desk where Conrad and Claire waited. Claire stood now, moving carefully. The medic hovered near her, ready to catch her if she swayed. Claire's voice was low. "We removed the tracker first." Ethan placed Benny on the desk. The bear looked ridiculous there, a child's toy on cold metal under surveillance monitors. Conrad opened a small kit and handed Claire a seam ripper and fine tweezers. Claire put on gloves again, then looked at Ethan. "I am going to open the foot," she said. "It will be small. We will sew it back." Ethan's jaw tightened. If Lucy sees a scar... Claire's eyes held his. "She will not," she said. "And if she does, we will tell her the bear needed a doctor." Ethan did not answer. He watched Claire's hands. Claire worked the seam with delicate precision. The stitches loosened. The fabric parted. The black capsule appeared like a parasite. Conrad leaned in, scanned it with a handheld device, then cursed under his breath. "Active," Conrad said. "Low power ping. It is looking for a receiver." Ethan's mouth went dry, meaning. Conrad glanced at the lake monitors. Meaning if someone is within range, they will get a hit. The cabin attackers knew where you were because they had a receiver or they got a signal relay. Claire's hands stayed steady as she pinched the capsule out of its pocket. She dropped it into a small metal box Conrad held open, then snapped the lid shut. The box beeped once, then went silent. Conrad exhaled. Signal is contained. Ethan's shoulders sagged with a fraction of relief, then tightened again. "That is only the tracker," Claire said quietly. "We still need what Lena hid." Ethan's pulse spiked. "And that is in the bear, too." Claire nodded. Ethan looked toward the hallway, where Lucy waited with Rachel. Lucy was visible through a small interior window, sitting on a bench, legs swinging slightly, hands clenched in her lap like she was trying not to fall apart. Ethan turned back. "Do it fast," he said. Claire's eyes softened briefly. "I will." Conrad opened a laptop and a rugged card reader. He placed them on the desk with a practiced movement, then looked to Claire. "You have the key," Conrad said. Ethan pulled the golden key from his pocket and set it beside Benny. The tiny photo frame swung again, Lena's smile catching the light. Ethan's throat tightened. Claire stared at the photo for a beat, then lifted her gaze to Ethan. "This matters," she said, voice quiet. "Not just for the company. Not just for me. For Lena." Ethan's voice came out rough. "Then do not waste time talking." Claire nodded once, accepting the cut. She ran the scanner over Benny again, slower, methodical. The device beeped at the bear's torso, this time near the spine. Claire's gloved fingers pressed along the stuffing. She found a line, an unusual seam hidden beneath the fur. A second layer not part of the original toy. "She added this," Claire murmured. Ethan's stomach twisted. Lena had sat on their couch, needle and thread in hand, pretending to repair Benny's loose stitching while hiding a secret that could get them killed. Conrad held out a small blade, the kind used for delicate work. Claire took it and opened the hidden seam with minimal damage. She peeled back the fabric and reached into the stuffing. Her fingers closed around something hard. She withdrew a tiny memory card sealed in clear plastic no bigger than a thumbnail. Ethan stared. "That is it." Claire's breath caught. For a second, her face lost its hardness. It was like seeing a person glance at a grave they built themselves. "Yes," she said. "That is it." Conrad took the card and slid it into the reader. The laptop screen lit with a series of encrypted files and a lock prompt. Claire gestured to the golden key. "That opens a safety deposit box," she said to Ethan, voice controlled. "Inside is a second device, the one that holds the decryption chain. Without it, this is noise." Ethan's jaw clenched. "So we risked everything for half the puzzle." Claire's eyes sharpened. "We risked everything because half the puzzle is still a target. But yes, we need the other half." Conrad tapped his headset. "Runner is ready." Claire shook her head. "No runner," she said. "Not with police attention on the roads tonight. Not with a receiver possibly still in play." Conrad frowned. "Then we cannot open these files." Claire turned to Ethan. "You open the box," she said. Ethan blinked. "Me?" Claire's gaze held steady. "It is under your name now. Lena made it that way." Ethan felt his blood turn cold. "How?" Claire's voice lowered. "Because she knew I would be watched. Because she knew you would not." Ethan's laugh came out empty. "I am being watched now." Claire did not deny it. "Not the way I am," she said. Not yet. Conrad slid a folder across the desk. Bank is in Bellevue. Private vault access, we have a route. Ethan stared at the folder like it might explode. Lucy cannot come. Claire's eyes flicked toward the interior window where Lucy waited. Lucy stays here, Claire said, with Rachel. Ethan's chest tightened. The idea of leaving Lucy again even for an hour felt like tearing his own skin off. Claire's voice softened. Ethan, she said. She is safer here than on a road. Ethan swallowed, and you are coming with me. Claire did not hesitate. Yes. The medic stepped forward. She should not be moving. Claire's gaze cut to him. I am moving. Conrad sighed like he had learned not to argue with her. Then we do it fast, he said. No stops, no lights. Ethan turned toward Lucy. He walked back to her with Benny in his hands. Lucy jumped off the bench the moment she saw the bear reaching for him. Ethan handed Benny over and Lucy hugged him fiercely, burying her face into the fur. He is okay, Ethan said softly. Lucy's voice came muffled. Do not take him again. Ethan crouched. I have to go for a little bit, he said. But Rachel is staying with you, and Benny is staying with you, and you are staying right here. Lucy's head snapped up. Fear flashed. No, I want you. Ethan's heart cracked. He pulled her into a tight hug. I want to stay, he whispered. More than anything. But this is how I keep you safe. Lucy's face pressed into his neck. Her voice trembled. Promise you come back. Ethan swallowed hard. Promise, he said, and he hated how fragile the word felt. Claire stepped closer and knelt beside them, carefully wincing at the movement. She did not hide it. Lucy noticed. Her eyes went wide. You are hurt. Claire nodded. A little. Lucy glanced at Benny, then back at Claire. Did you get hurt because of me? Claire's face softened in a way Ethan had not seen before. No, Claire said. I got hurt because someone chose to do something bad. You did nothing wrong. Lucy stared at her, then asked in a small voice, Are you going to leave too? Claire met her eyes. Yes, she said. But Rachel will keep you safe, and Conrad will keep you safe. This place is strong. Lucy's brows knit. Are you strong? Claire's mouth tightened, then she nodded once. Yes, she said. I am. Lucy studied her for a long beat, then leaned forward and hugged Claire's waist gently, careful of her bandage without understanding what it protected. Claire froze. Ethan saw it. The way Claire's hands hovered in the air for a second like she had forgotten how to accept comfort, then slowly settled on Lucy's back. Claire closed her eyes briefly. Ethan looked away, throat burning. Rachel stepped closer. I will stay with her. Rachel said quietly to Ethan. She will not be alone. Ethan nodded once, unable to speak. He stood and followed Claire and Conrad toward the armored door that led deeper into the facility, then out to a hidden garage. The second SUV was already running when they climbed in. Claire sat beside Ethan in the back this time, her bandaged side angled away, her posture rigid with pain and determination. Conrad took the front passenger seat, and the driver pulled them out onto the dark road. Rain began again, light and steady, tapping the windows like impatient fingers. They reached the bank in less than 30 minutes. Bellevue at night looked polished, clean sidewalks, quiet storefronts, the kind of place where danger wore expensive shoes. They entered through a side entrance and descended into the vault area under a key card and Conrad's authorization. No one asked Claire for identification. No one dared. Her presence bent the rules without a word. A private room waited at the end of a corridor, bare table camera in the corner, metal door behind them. Ethan's palms were damp. Conrad slid the folder toward Ethan. Box numbers here, he said. Key opens the outer lock. There is a second item inside that completes the chain. Ethan nodded, throat tight. He inserted the golden key into the lock of a small steel drawer unit. The key turned smoothly like it had been used recently. The drawer slid open. Inside sat a black hard drive sealed in plastic and a folded piece of paper with Lena's handwriting. Ethan's chest constricted. He recognized the slant, the quick loops, the way she crossed her T's low. He unfolded it with shaking hands. Only 3 words. For Lucy, for Ethan. Ethan's vision blurred. He forced himself to blink hard and shoved the note into his pocket like he could protect it there. Claire watched him, silent, eyes bright but controlled. Conrad took the sealed drive. Back, he said, now. They returned to the SUV and drove straight to the hillside safe house. Conrad did not speak on the way. Neither did Claire. Ethan did not trust his voice. When they re-entered the operations room, the laptop still waited on the desk, encryption prompt unchanged. Conrad connected the black drive and typed rapidly. Lines of code scrolled, then paused. A progress bar filled slowly, then clicked to complete. The encrypted files opened. Ethan leaned in. The screen showed documents, internal logs, transfers, communications, and images. Charts of data movement. Timestamps, a trail that did not stop at the edge of the company. It led outward, branching into offshore accounts and foreign intermediaries. The leak was not a single betrayal. It was a network. Claire's face tightened as she scanned the file list. Her breath grew shallow. Conrad opened a folder labeled Internal Access. A name appeared at the top of a document, bold and unavoidable. Gavin Pierce. Ethan stared at it. The name meant nothing to him at first, then his mind snapped into recognition. He had seen Gavin Pierce in the company newsletter, standing beside Claire at ribbon cutting, smiling like a polished knife. The chief operating officer. The man everyone called Claire's right hand. The one who gave speeches about integrity and mission. Claire did not move. Her eyes stayed locked on the name as if it was a weapon pointed at her throat. Conrad's voice went tight. It is him. Claire's lips parted, but no sound came out. The composure she wore like armor finally cracked, not into tears, but into something colder. Betrayal. Ethan watched her face change and felt a strange rush of anger, not just for himself, but for her. Claire had carried this war inside her company, inside her walls, and the person closest to her had been the rot. Claire finally spoke, and her voice was quiet enough to be almost gentle. He mentored me, she said. Conrad swallowed. He is the one who signed off on Lena's department access. Ethan's throat went dry. He pictured Gavin Pierce at Lena's funeral, hands clasped, head bowed, the grief performed perfectly. Ethan had shaken his hand that day and thanked him for coming. Ethan felt sick. Claire leaned closer to the screen and opened another file. A transfer log, a message thread. A scheduling record that placed Gavin Pierce near Lena's route on the morning of her crash. Claire's fingers hovered over the trackpad, then curled into a fist. For the first time since Ethan had known her, she looked small. Not weak, but wounded. Ethan moved without thinking. He stepped closer, then stopped, unsure if comfort was allowed in this room. Claire's eyes lifted to him. They were bright, furious, and devastated all at once. I trusted him, she said, voice barely steady. I brought him into every room that mattered. Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to say, I know what it is to trust someone and lose them. He wanted to say, I lost Lena. You lost the idea of safety. Instead, he reached out and placed his hand on the edge of the desk near hers, close, but not touching. We give this to law enforcement, Ethan said, voice rough. We do not handle it inside your company. Conrad nodded. Feds, he said. This is beyond internal. Claire stared at the screen, then closed her eyes for a second like she was forcing herself to breathe through a blade. When she opened them again, the CEO was back in her posture, not as a mask, but as a decision. Yes, Claire said. We go federal. Conrad's headset crackled. Rachel's voice came through calm but urgent. Lucy is asking for Ethan, Rachel said. She is holding the bear, and she will not let go. She is scared, but she is steady. Ethan's throat tightened. He looked toward the hallway. Claire's gaze followed his. Her voice softened by a fraction. Go to her, she said. Ethan hesitated. And you? Claire's eyes stayed hard on the laptop. "I will be right here," she said. "I am not leaving this screen until we have a secure handoff plan." Ethan turned and walked quickly down the hallway. Lucy sat on the bench where he left her. Benny was in her arms, squeezed tight. Her eyes snapped up the moment Ethan appeared, and she launched herself off the bench into him. Ethan caught her holding her so tight he felt her breath hitch. "You came back," Lucy whispered into his shirt. Ethan kissed her hair. "I told you," he murmured. "I keep my promises." Lucy clung to him, then pulled back just enough to look at his face. "Are the bad guys gone?" Ethan's throat worked. He chose his words carefully. "Not yet," he said. "But we know who they are." Lucy's eyes widened. "You know his name?" Ethan froze for a fraction of a second, startled by her phrasing. Lucy nodded toward Benny, voice small. "Mom said if you ever got the secret out, you would learn a name." Ethan's skin prickled. Claire's voice came from behind him, low. She had stepped into the hallway, quietly leaning on the doorframe with controlled fatigue. Lucy looked at her. "Ms. Whitmore," she said, solemn. "Did you learn the name?" Claire met the child's gaze. The bandage under her jacket pulled slightly as she breathed. "Yes," Claire said, "we did." Lucy hugged Benny tighter. "Is it someone you know?" Claire did not lie, she did not soften it. "Yes," she said, "it is." Lucy stared at her, then asked with a child's blunt clarity, "Did he hurt my mom?" Ethan's chest clenched so hard he could barely breathe. Claire's jaw tightened. Her eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to Lucy. "He is responsible," Claire said quietly. Lucy's face crumpled. Tears filled her eyes, silent at first, then spilling over. Ethan pulled her close again, rocking her slightly. "It is okay," he whispered, even though it was not. "I have you." Lucy's voice broke against his shirt. "I want Mom." Ethan squeezed his eyes shut. The ache was physical. Claire stood very still. Ethan heard her breathe in slow and controlled, like she was holding herself together one breath at a time. After a long moment, Claire spoke, voice gentle but steady. "Lucy," she said, "your mom did something brave. She did it because she loved you. She wanted you safe." Lucy sniffed, wiping her face against Ethan's jacket. "Benny kept the secret," she whispered. Ethan looked down at the bear. The stitched smile looked unchanged. The world around it had changed completely. Claire's voice lowered further. "We are going to keep you safe," she said. Lucy's eyes lifted to Claire. "You promised." Claire nodded once. "I promise." Ethan held his daughter tighter, feeling the weight of that promise settle into the room like a second heartbeat. Lucy fell asleep on Ethan's chest an hour later. Not the deep, easy sleep of childhood, but the exhausted surrender of a kid who had cried until her body ran out of fuel. Benny was wedged between them, one paw pressed against Ethan's sternum as if the bear were holding him together too. Ethan sat on the edge of a narrow cot in a side room of the safe house, the lights dim, the air warm. He kept one hand on Lucy's back and watched her breathe. In the hallway beyond the cracked door, voices moved in low currents. Radios murmured. Footsteps passed and returned. Conrad's people worked the way ants worked, quietly relentless, building safety out of routine. Ethan should have slept. He could not. The images from the laptop kept flashing behind his eyes. The name. Gavin Pierce. A man with a perfect suit and a perfect handshake. A man who had spoken about honor at Lena's funeral. Ethan pressed his lips to Lucy's hair, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and something faintly like cocoa from the hot chocolate earlier. He held that smell like a rope. A soft knock came at the door. Ethan looked up. Claire stepped in without waiting for an answer. She moved carefully, one hand resting near her bandaged side. In the dim light, she looked less like a headline and more like someone who had been awake for days. Rachel followed behind her, silent eyes scanning the room as if danger might leak through walls. Lucy did not stir. Claire's gaze landed on the child, then on Benny, then on Ethan's face. "She is out," Claire whispered. Ethan nodded once. His throat felt raw. "She asked me if he hurt her," Ethan said, voice low. I did not know what to say. Claire's jaw tightened, the muscle near her cheek twitching. You said the truth, she replied. That is what she deserves. Ethan stared at Claire's bandage. How bad is it? Claire's mouth tightened. Painful, she said, not fatal. Ethan let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. You should be in a hospital. Claire's eyes held his steady and cool. I will be once she is safe, and once the evidence is out of my hands. Ethan's voice hardened. You have had 3 years. Claire did not flinch. She moved to the foot of the cot and sat carefully on the edge of a chair as if her body had finally demanded a pause. Her eyes flicked to Rachel. Dr. Claire said. Rachel nodded and stepped back into the hall, leaving the door partly closed but not latched. Claire's gaze returned to Ethan. I did not know which door to use, she said quietly. If I went to law enforcement too early, I risked tipping Pierce off. If I stayed internal too long, I risked what happened tonight. Ethan's hand tightened on Lucy's back. And Lena. Claire's eyes dropped for a beat. When she lifted them again, there was something in them that looked almost like shame. I failed her, Claire said. Ethan wanted to throw that sentence back at her. He wanted to say she failed all of them. He wanted to blame someone whose face he could see because grief needed a target. But then he pictured Claire in the boat, bleeding, shielding Lucy with her body as gunfire snapped the water. He pictured her hands holding Benny like a bomb, and still trying not to break a child's heart. Ethan's anger did not vanish. It simply shifted shape. You said she called you the night before, Ethan said. Did she sound scared? Claire's voice softened almost unwillingly. She sounded calm, she said, which terrified me. Lena was never calm unless she was making a decision. Ethan's throat tightened. What did she say? Exact words. Claire's eyes closed for a moment as if she was replaying a recording only she could hear. She said, Claire, if I do not answer tomorrow, do not come for me. Claire whispered. She said, do not make this about revenge. Make it about Lucy. She said the key would reach you, and you would know what to do. Ethan's eyes stung. He blinked hard. I did not know anything he said. I did not know my wife had a second life. I did not know my daughter was holding a weapon. Claire leaned forward slightly. She believed you would choose Lucy, she said. Every time. Ethan swallowed. That part was true. Lucy had become the axis of his life the day Lena died. Everything else was a satellite. He looked down at Benny, the bear's stitched smile unchanged. And you, Ethan said, eyes lifting to Claire. Why did you really come to me at the restaurant? Claire's face went still. In the soft light, her control looked thin, like paper held against wind. Because Pierce was moving, Claire said. Because I got a confirmation ping 2 days ago from a receiver we planted months ago. It caught a signal that matched Lena's encryption protocol. Ethan frowned. Protocol. Claire nodded. A signature, she said. Something she used to mark and verify files. It told me the hidden device was still out there, still intact, still near you. Ethan's breath caught. Near me. Claire's gaze held steady. Near Lucy, she corrected. Ethan's stomach turned. So you watched my daughter. Claire did not deny it. From a distance, she said. Enough to ensure she was breathing. Enough to ensure no one took the bear. Ethan's voice sharpened. And you never told me. Claire's eyes flicked toward Lucy. If I told you, she said you would have thrown it away. Or you would have marched into my office and demanded answers. Either choice would have lit you up. Ethan's jaw clenched, so you kept us blind. Claire's voice stayed quiet. I kept you alive. Silence sat between them. From the hallway, a faint burst of radio chatter rose, then softened again. Ethan shifted Lucy slightly so her head rested more comfortably on his shoulder. Lucy sighed in her sleep, her fingers twitching once against Benny's fur. Ethan's heart squeezed at the small motion. She remembers Ethan whispered pieces of what Lena told her. Claire nodded. Children remember what adults assume they will forget. Ethan's gaze lifted. Lucy said something earlier, he said. She said Mom told her if we got the secret out, we would learn a name. Claire's mouth tightened. Lena always planned for a name she said. A clean chain, something a prosecutor could hold. Ethan stared at Claire. "You are talking like this is already in court." Claire's eyes sharpened. "It needs to be," she said. Ethan's voice lowered. "Are you calling the FBI?" Claire did not hesitate. "Yes," she said, "tonight." Ethan's throat tightened. "And if Pierce is already inside your company, then he has ears everywhere." Claire's gaze held steady. "Not in the channels I'm about to use." Ethan did not like how confident she sounded. He had spent years thinking of Claire as a woman who controlled everything. Tonight proved control was an illusion, even for her. Claire stood carefully, wincing slightly as she moved. "Come," she said quietly. Ethan looked down at Lucy, then back at Claire. "I am not leaving her." "I am not asking you to," Claire replied. "Bring her." Ethan's stomach tightened at the idea of moving Lucy again. But the cot room felt suddenly small, like a hiding place that could turn into a trap if they stayed too long. He lifted Lucy gently, keeping Benny tucked against her side. Lucy did not wake, only shifted and nuzzled her face into Ethan's neck. They moved into the main operations room. Conrad stood near the laptop, arms folded, eyes tired. The screen displayed the files, and beside it sat the sealed drive and a stack of printed pages Conrad had already pulled for a physical copy. Another man stood there, too older, dressed plain, with the calm gaze of someone who had spent a career in chaos. He wore no badge, but the way everyone made space for him told Ethan what he needed to know. Claire's voice turned formal. "Agent Keene," she said. The man nodded. "Miss Whitmore." Ethan's grip tightened on Lucy. "Who is he?" Claire glanced at Ethan. "Federal," she said. "He's clean." Agent Keene's gaze went to Lucy, then to Ethan, then to Benny. His expression did not soften, but it warmed slightly. "Mr. Cole," he said, "I'm sorry for what has happened." Ethan did not answer. He did not trust his voice. Claire motioned toward the laptop. "That is the chain," she said. "Access logs, communication threads offshore, transfers, the internal approvals. It points to Gavin Pierce as the coordinator. There are secondary names in the network." Agent Keene leaned in and scanned the screen, his eyes moving quickly. He did not touch the keyboard. He took in the information like a man who had learned not to contaminate evidence. Conrad handed him a folder. "Hard copies," Conrad said. "Drive is intact. Chain of custody starts now." Agent Keene nodded. "Good," he said. Ethan's heart pounded. "He is still out there," Ethan said, voice low. "Pierce. If he knows, he will come." Agent Keene met Ethan's gaze. "He is already moving," Keene said. "That is why I am here." Ethan's skin prickled. "How do you know?" Keene's eyes flicked to a monitor that showed a map of the region. Small dots pulsed around highways and city streets, not labeled, but purposeful. "We have been tracking an espionage network tied to biomedical research for months," Keene said. "We did not have a clean entry point into your company's internal approvals. This does." Claire's jaw tightened. "You were watching my company." Keene's expression stayed neutral. "We were watching the pattern," he said. "Tonight it walked up to us and introduced itself." Claire's eyes narrowed, but she did not argue. Her focus stayed on getting the evidence out of her hands. Keene looked at her bandage. "You need a hospital." Claire's voice stayed firm. "After Lucy is secure." Keene's gaze shifted to Ethan and the child in his arms. "Protective custody," Keene said. "Now." Ethan's stomach dropped. "No," he said instinctively. "She stays with me." Keene's voice did not change. "She will," he said. "You will both be moved. Safe location. Limited contacts. No personal phones. No digital trail." Ethan's pulse hammered. The idea of being told where to sleep with his child felt like another theft. Another person taking the last pieces of his life. He looked at Claire. "Is this what you wanted?" Ethan asked, voice tight. Claire met his eyes. "I want her alive," she said, "whatever that requires." Ethan's jaw clenched. He looked down at Lucy. Her face was soft in sleep, trusting, unaware. Benny's paw rested against her cheek. Ethan's throat tightened. "Okay," he said, the word tasting like surrender. "But she does not leave my arms." Keen nodded. "Agreed," he said. Conrad stepped forward. "We will scrub this site," he said to Claire. "Burn the digital trail, move staff." Claire nodded once, then her body swayed slightly. The medic stepped in quickly and steadied her. Keen watched, then spoke. "Ambulance is staged," he said, "unmarked. We can treat you en route." Claire's mouth tightened. "I am not going in a siren box," she said. Keen's expression barely shifted. "No sirens," he replied, "just wheels." Claire looked at the laptop one last time, then at the sealed drive in Keen's hand. Her eyes lingered there like she was watching a piece of her life being carried away. Then her gaze slid to Ethan. "Ethan," she said quietly. He looked up. Claire's voice softened, and for a moment the room felt smaller, less operational, more human. "I kept one promise," she said. "Tonight I intend to keep the rest." Ethan's throat tightened. "You already broke our lives," he said. Claire nodded, accepting the cut. "Yes," she said. "And I will spend the rest of my life making sure Lucy gets to live hers." Keen stepped aside, gesturing toward a hallway that led to a concealed exit. "Time," he said. Ethan adjusted Lucy in his arms, careful, protective. Lucy stirred faintly, then settled again. Ethan pressed his lips to her hair, a silent vow. They moved through the corridor in a tight group. Rachel walked close, her hand hovering near Lucy's back as if she could catch the child's fear before it surfaced. Conrad stayed behind with his team, already shutting down screens and clearing surfaces. As they reached the exit, Lucy murmured, half asleep, voice small and thick. "Dad," she whispered. Ethan leaned in. "I am here." Lucy's fingers tightened around Benny's ear. "Do not let go," she murmured. Ethan swallowed hard. "I will not," he whispered. Behind him, Claire's footsteps were slower now, pain stealing the smoothness from her stride. Ethan heard her inhale sharply once, then steady it. The door opened to night air and a waiting van, dark and unmarked, parked beneath trees. No flashing lights. No sound except rain on leaves. Agent Keen spoke once, low and controlled. "Heads down," he said. Ethan climbed in first, Lucy still in his arms. Benny pressed to her chest. Claire followed, guided by the medic. She lowered herself into the seat across from Ethan, her face, pale eyes still sharp. For a brief second, Ethan looked at her and saw two truths at once. Claire Whitmore had brought danger to his doorstep. Claire Whitmore had stepped between that danger and his child. The van doors shut. The locks clicked, and the world outside disappeared. The van smelled like rain and disinfectant. Ethan sat with Lucy across his lap, her head on his shoulder. Benny wedged between them. The medic had clipped a small light to the ceiling and was working on Claire's bandage with quiet efficiency. Every time the tape pulled, Claire's breath tightened, but she did not make a sound. Agent Keen sat near the front, speaking into a secured handset. His words were low, clipped, full of codes Ethan could not follow. The driver kept both hands on the wheel and took turns that felt planned, not chosen. Outside, the world was a smear of wet streetlights and dark trees. Ethan's mind kept returning to the banknote in his pocket. For Lucy, for Ethan. Lena's handwriting pressed against his skin like a living thing. Lucy shifted slightly. Her eyelids fluttered. She woke with a small start, looking around the dim interior as if she expected the cabin, then the lake, then the gunshots to still be there. "Dad," she whispered. Ethan pressed his cheek to her hair. "I am here." Lucy's eyes found Claire. Claire was seated upright, jaw set, as the medic finished securing a clean dressing along her ribs. Lucy stared, then sat up a little. Benny lifted with her like he was attached. "Are you still bleeding?" Lucy asked. Claire's gaze softened. "Not anymore," she said. "The bandage is doing its job." Lucy studied the medic's hands, then looked back at Claire's face. "Does it hurt?" Claire paused, then nodded once. "Yes," she said, "but it is manageable." Lucy considered that, small brows drawn together. "Mom used to say hurts are loud at first, and then they get quieter." Ethan's throat tightened. Claire's eyes flickered. "Your mom was right," she said. Lucy hugged Benny tighter and rested her forehead against the bear. "I miss her," she whispered. The van was quiet for a beat. Ethan held Lucy's small hand, rubbing his thumb over her knuckles. "Me too," he said. Claire looked out the window, and the reflection of passing lights moved across her face like water. When she spoke, her voice was low. "I miss her too," she said. Lucy lifted her head and stared at Claire like she was trying to understand how grief could belong to someone else. "Did you cry when she went to heaven?" Claire's mouth tightened, and Ethan saw the effort it took for her to answer without hiding behind corporate language. "Yes," Claire said. "I cried." Lucy nodded as if that settled something. Then she leaned closer to Ethan, whispering, "Ms. Whitmore cries like a person." Ethan almost laughed. The sound stuck in his throat and turned into something that felt like a sob. He cleared it and kissed Lucy's temple. The van slowed, then turned onto a gravel road. The driver switched off the headlights, briefly rolling in darkness, then clicked them back on once they passed a bend. Agent Keene looked over his shoulder. "We are close," he said, then returned to his handset. Claire shifted carefully, wincing. Ethan watched her face tighten and tried not to feel anything about it. Feeling was dangerous, but his chest did something strange anyway. It recognized courage. It recognized someone standing in the line of fire and refusing to step aside. The van stopped. Keene opened the door a crack and scanned the darkness with a small light that did not cast far. Then he nodded to the driver and pulled the door wider. Cold air poured in. "Move," Keene said. They stepped out into a place that did not feel like a facility and did not feel like a safe house. It felt like a private residence built to be invisible. A small ranch-style home sat behind a stand of pines. No porch light. Curtains drawn. The only sign of life was a dim glow from a back window. Two people in plain clothes waited near the door. One of them nodded at Keene and stepped aside. Ethan carried Lucy inside first. The house smelled like clean linens and lemon cleaner, simple furniture, a couch, a small dining table, a hallway leading to bedrooms. It looked like a rental, but Ethan could feel the hidden layers. The camera in the smoke detector, the reinforced deadbolt, the quiet hum of an unseen alarm system. Lucy looked around, eyes wide. "Is this our house now?" Ethan swallowed. "Just for a little while," he said, then caught himself and tightened his mouth. He shifted the sentence into something safer. "Just for now." Lucy accepted that with a tired nod and leaned against him again. Keene gestured to a bedroom down the hall. "That room is for you and the child," he said to Ethan. "Door locks from the inside, bathroom attached, no windows that face the road." Ethan nodded, still gripping Lucy. Claire followed inside, slowly supported by the medic. She took in the room with a quick scan, then rested one hand on the wall, breathing through pain. Keene looked at her. "Hospital now," he said. Claire's eyes narrowed. "After the child is settled." Keene's jaw tightened, but he stepped back, conceding the moment. Ethan carried Lucy into the bedroom and laid her on the bed. The sheets were crisp, the pillow too full. Lucy curled onto her side and pulled Benny into her chest. Ethan sat beside her and smoothed her hair. "Try to sleep," he whispered. Lucy's eyes stayed open. "Stay," she said. Ethan nodded. "I am staying." Lucy's gaze flicked toward the door where Claire stood in the hallway. Lucy watched her like she was still deciding where to place her in the story of this night. "Dad," Lucy whispered, "is she our friend?" Ethan's throat tightened. Friend was a simple word for a complicated truth. Ethan looked at Claire, then back at Lucy. "She is helping us," he said. Lucy's brow furrowed. "Why?" Ethan's voice came low. "Because your mom asked her to." Lucy blinked slowly. "Mom asked Ms. Whitmore." Ethan nodded. Lucy looked at Claire again. "Did you say yes?" Claire stepped closer, careful, and leaned against the doorframe. Her voice was soft, controlled. "I said yes," Claire replied, "right away." Lucy studied her. Even when it was scary, Claire nodded once. Especially when it was scary. Lucy's fingers rubbed Benny's ear. Mom said brave people do scary things even when their knees feel wobbly. Claire's mouth tightened into something like a smile. Your mom was very smart, she said. Lucy's eyelids grew heavy. She yawned, then fought it. Do not go away, she whispered, looking at Ethan again. Ethan pressed his hand over hers. I am here, he said. Lucy finally let her eyes close. Ethan stayed beside her until her breathing softened and slowed. He watched the rise and fall of her back, watched her fingers relax around Benny. He did not move until he was sure she was truly asleep. Then he stepped out into the hallway. Claire sat at the kitchen table now, a glass of water in front of her untouched. The medic stood beside her packing supplies. Keene was near the living room speaking quietly into his handset. Claire looked up when Ethan entered. Her eyes were tired but sharp. Ethan closed the bedroom door most of the way and walked toward her. For a second, he did not know what to say. There were too many sentences competing in his throat. You lied. You saved us. You brought this to my door. You carried it alone. He chose a smaller truth. Lucy thinks you are brave, Ethan said quietly. Claire's gaze held his. Lucy is perceptive, she replied. Ethan sat across from her at the table. The chair creaked softly. The sound felt loud in the quiet house. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded note from the safe deposit box. He placed it between them. I found this, he said. Claire's eyes went to Lena's handwriting. She did not touch the paper at first. She simply looked at it as if touching it would make something real that she was not ready to feel. Ethan unfolded it and slid it closer. For Lucy, for Ethan. Claire inhaled slowly. Her eyes glistened and she blinked once hard. She wrote it for you, Ethan said. Claire's voice was low. She wrote it for both of you, she replied. Ethan's jaw clenched. She wrote it, knowing she was not coming home. Claire did not deny it. Ethan's hands curled into fists, then relaxed. Did she ever talk about me? He asked, and the question came out before he could stop it. Claire's gaze lifted sharply. Ethan felt heat rise in his face, anger at himself for asking something personal while the world still burned. But the question was there now. It had been there since the restaurant, since Claire's strange attention, since she said she had been watching him. Claire's voice stayed careful. Yes, she said, often. Ethan swallowed. Why? Claire's eyes held his, and the room felt suddenly smaller, more intimate, despite Keene in the next room and armed security outside. Because you were her safe place, Claire said. When the work got heavy, she spoke about you like she was describing air. Ethan's throat tightened. He looked down at the note again as if Lena might climb out of the ink and explain herself. Claire's voice remained steady but softer. She said, you made her feel normal, Claire continued. She said you made her laugh when she forgot how. She said Lucy had your stubbornness and her curiosity. Ethan's eyes burned. He blinked hard. She kept a whole life from me, Ethan said, voice rough. And I still cannot be angry at her without feeling like I am betraying her. Claire nodded once, understanding in her eyes. Grief does that, she said. Ethan looked up. What did she ask you to do, he said. Specifically. Claire's jaw tightened. She asked me to keep you and Lucy alive, Claire replied. She asked me to make sure you did not lose your home to the custody fight. She asked me to make sure you got the promotion you deserved so your daughter could stay with you. Ethan stared. A dozen memories rearranged themselves. The way his schedule flexibility had been approved without complaint. The raise that came earlier than expected. The sudden attention from HR when his in-laws started calling the company. The sense that something invisible had been smoothing the road. Ethan's voice dropped. That was you. Claire nodded. Ethan's chest tightened. Why would you do that for me? You did not owe me anything. Claire's gaze did not waver. Lena made me promise, she said. Ethan swallowed, then forced the next question out. And that is the only reason. Claire's eyes flicked away for the first time just a fraction toward the window where the dark pines stood outside like guards. When she looked back, her composure was intact, but Ethan saw a faint tremor in it. "No," Claire said. Ethan's pulse kicked. "Then what?" Claire's voice was low even. "I watched you because she asked me to," she said. "And then I kept watching because I could not stop." Ethan's throat tightened. He did not speak. Claire's hands rested on the table fingers still as if she refused to let them reveal anything. "I saw you raising Lucy," Claire said. "I saw you show up to school events after sleeping 3 hours. I saw you work late and still make pancakes in the morning. I saw you hold yourself together when people tried to take her from you." Ethan's breath caught. He looked away, jaw tight. Claire's voice softened further. "Lena used to talk about you," she said. "She lit up when she said your name. She said you were the best thing that ever happened to her." Ethan's eyes burned again. Claire's gaze held his. "I did not fall in love with your grief," she said quietly. "I fell in love with your devotion." The sentence landed like a weight. Ethan's chest tightened. His mind tried to reject it. It tried to label it manipulation, a tactic, a distraction. But Claire's face did not look like a woman making a play. It looked like a woman confessing something she would rather keep buried because it made her vulnerable. Ethan's voice came out hoarse. "You are my boss." Claire nodded. "I know." Ethan's hands gripped the edge of the table. "And my wife is dead." Claire's eyes glistened. "I know," she repeated softer. Ethan sat in silence, the note between them, Lena's handwriting, staring up like a ghost. In the living room, Agent Keene ended a call and approached the kitchen. His expression was controlled. "We have movement on Pierce," Keene said. "Warrants are being drafted. Teams are staging." Ethan's stomach tightened again, dragging him back into the immediate danger. Keene looked at Claire. "You are coming with me to medical," he said. "Now." Claire's jaw tightened. She glanced down the hall toward Lucy's room, then back at Ethan. Ethan stood voice low. "Go," he said. "Get treated." Claire's eyes held his for a long beat. Then she nodded once. The medic guided her towards the door. Keene followed, speaking quietly into his handset again. Claire paused at the doorway and looked back at Ethan. Ethan did not move. Claire's voice came out low, almost private. "Do not let her sleep alone," she said, meaning Lucy. Ethan's throat tightened. He nodded. Claire stepped out into the night and the door shut behind her. Ethan stood in the quiet kitchen with Lena's note on the table, Lucy asleep down the hall, and a truth he did not know how to hold yet. His heart had been broken once. It was breaking open in a different way now. The first time Ethan slept in the protected house, it was not really sleep. It was his body shutting down in fragments 20 minutes at a time, waking with his heart racing and his hand searching for Lucy's breath. He lay beside her in the narrow bed, one arm curved around her small frame, Benny tucked under her chin like a guard dog made of stuffing. Lucy stayed asleep most of the night. When she did stir, it was only enough to reach for Ethan's shirt and whisper promise, and then drift back under. Ethan kept promising. Quietly, relentlessly, like words could build a wall. Near dawn, a soft knock sounded at the bedroom door. Ethan sat up instantly, every muscle tight. Rachel's voice came through low and calm. "It is me. Agent Keene wants to speak with you." Ethan exhaled, careful not to wake Lucy. He slid out of bed and pulled the door open just enough to step into the hallway. Rachel stood with her arms crossed, eyes alert. She looked like she had not slept either. Keene waited in the kitchen, coat on, hair slightly damp, like he had been outside. A folder sat on the table. So did a paper cup of coffee, untouched. Ethan walked in and kept his voice low. "Tell me." Keene did not waste time. "Pierce is in custody," he said. Ethan froze. The words did not register at first. His mind searched for the catch. Keene continued. "He tried to leave through a private air service out of Tacoma. Our team intercepted. He is alive. He is talking. Not enough to save himself, but enough to confirm the network." Ethan's shoulders sagged with a rush of relief so sharp it almost made him dizzy. He gripped the back of a chair until it passed. Keene slid the folder across the table. Warrant copies, custody paperwork, and the initial charging outline. Ethan did not touch it yet. "Claire," he said. Keene's expression softened slightly as if he had been expecting the question. "She is stable," he replied. "She refused pain medication so she could keep making calls. Doctors are not thrilled. But she is stable." Ethan swallowed. The image of Claire grimacing under fluorescent light blood soaking her jacket flashed in his mind. Keene tapped the folder. "She gave us a clean chain. The drive, the prints, the internal logs. It is solid." Ethan finally picked up the folder, then set it down again without opening it. Evidence was only the skeleton. It did not hold the weight of what Ethan had lived through the past 24 hours. Keene leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Cole, I need to be clear. This does not mean you are safe today. A network does not collapse in a single arrest. But it does mean the center of gravity has changed." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Do they still know about Lucy?" Keene nodded once. "They know enough to be dangerous. That is why protective custody remains." Ethan stared toward the hallway where Lucy slept. His heart clenched. Keene rose. "I will brief you again later," he said. "Right now, you focus on your child. She needs her father to be steady." Ethan nodded, throat tight. Keene paused at the doorway, then glanced back. "For what it is worth," he said quietly, "your wife did not die for nothing." Ethan's eyes burned. He did not respond. Keene left without pressing. Ethan stood in the quiet kitchen for a moment, breathing through the ache. Then he walked back to Lucy's room. Lucy was awake, sitting up with bed hair and sleepy eyes, Benny in her arms. She blinked at Ethan as if she had been waiting. "Dad," she said, "I had a dream Mom was making pancakes." Ethan sat on the edge of the bed and smoothed her hair. "Was it a good dream?" Lucy nodded, then her face tightened as she remembered. "Are the bad guys still here?" Ethan swallowed. "One of the biggest bad guys is caught," he said. "That means we are safer." Lucy's eyes widened slightly. "Caught like in a net." Ethan nodded, "Like in a net." Lucy hugged Benny tighter. "Does that mean we can go home?" Ethan's throat tightened. Home. He thought of their house of strangers, walking through Lucy's room, touching drawers, stepping on the rug where Lena used to sit and build Lego castles with Lucy. "Not yet," Ethan said gently. "But soon you will be somewhere that feels like home again." Lucy studied his face like she was measuring his words. Then she nodded slowly, accepting the smallest truth she could hold. A few hours later, Claire arrived, not in a suit. Not with a driver. Not with that cold, untouchable posture Ethan associated with her office. She walked in with a medical wrap around her ribs and a simple gray sweater that looked like it had never been near a boardroom. Her hair was pulled back loosely, not perfect. She looked pale, but her eyes were steady. Rachel opened the door and stepped aside. Ethan rose from the couch on instinct, unsure whether to feel relief, anger, gratitude, or all of it at once. Claire's gaze went straight to Lucy. Lucy stood near the coffee table, Benny in her arms. She stared at Claire for a long moment, solemn in the way only children can be when they sense the world has changed. Claire knelt slowly, careful of her injury. "Hi," she said softly. Lucy's eyebrows lifted. "Do you hurt?" Claire nodded, a little. Lucy considered, then walked forward and touched Claire's sweater near her ribs, with one careful finger as if she could feel the injury through fabric. "That is where the bad guys made you bleed," Lucy said. Claire's mouth tightened. "Yes." Lucy looked up into Claire's face. "Thank you for not letting them take me." Claire's eyes glistened. She blinked once, slow. "You are welcome," she said. Lucy hesitated, then hugged Claire's shoulders gently the way she would hug someone holding a baby. Claire froze for half a second, then wrapped her arms around Lucy with careful restraint. Ethan watched, throat burning. Lucy stepped back and lifted Benny. "He is still brave," she said. Claire nodded. "He is." Lucy's voice dropped. "Dad said the biggest bad guy got caught. Is it the man who hurt Mom?" Claire's eyes flicked to Ethan for the briefest moment, then returned to Lucy. "Yes," Claire said. "He is responsible." Lucy's face crumpled. She turned and buried her face into Ethan's stomach, arms wrapping around him and Benny at once. Ethan held her one hand on her back, the other pressed against Benny's fur as if the bear could anchor them both. Claire rose slowly. She looked at Ethan with an expression that was equal parts exhaustion and resolve. "He is in federal custody," Claire said. "The network is being dismantled. There will be court, but the immediate threat has shifted." Ethan's voice was low. "And my life." Claire's gaze held steady. "Your life is yours," she said. "I do not want to control it." "I never did." Ethan let out a bitter breath. "You controlled a lot." Claire nodded once. "I did," she said, "because Lena asked me to keep you afloat when you did not know why you were drowning." Lucy lifted her head, eyes wet. "Why did Mom not tell Dad?" Ethan's chest tightened. Claire lowered her voice. "Because she wanted your dad to be free," she said. "Free to love you without fear in his head every day." Lucy sniffed and rubbed Benny's ear. "Mom still made fear," she whispered. Ethan's throat ached. "She did," he said gently, "but she also made a way out." Later that afternoon, Keene returned with paperwork and arrangements. There were meetings, statements, fingerprints, photographs of the devices. Questions Ethan answered with a numb steadiness that surprised him. Claire was present for all of it, careful, focused, never dramatic. Lucy stayed near Rachel, coloring at the table, Benny propped beside her like a small, faithful witness. 2 days later, the headlines hit. Ethan did not see them on his phone. He did not have one. But Keene brought printouts for Claire, and Ethan caught a glimpse as he walked past. A photo of Claire in front of a courthouse, expression composed, shoulders squared. A photo of Gavin Pierce being led into a vehicle, face hidden. Words about an espionage ring. About biomedical theft. About a whistleblower who had died. Ethan felt the air leave his lungs when he saw Lena's name in ink. Not as a patient. Not as a victim. As a woman who had done something dangerous to protect something bigger than herself. 3 months passed before Ethan stood in his own backyard again. Not the same backyard. The house was different. Smaller, safer, in a quieter neighborhood where the streets felt watched in the comforting way, not the predatory way. Lucy was in the grass with a plastic bowl and a wooden spoon, making mud pies like she had not seen a gunshot in her life. Benny sat beside her, stitched carefully along the left foot and the back seam so neatly that only Ethan and Claire knew where the bear had been opened. Claire stood nearby in jeans and a plain white shirt, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up. A smear of dirt marked her knee where she had knelt to help Lucy mix in dandelions like sprinkles. Lucy looked up at Claire, excited. "You are doing it wrong," she said. Claire raised her hands. "I am taking notes," she replied, deadpan. Lucy giggled. Ethan felt the sound like a warm hand on his chest. Claire glanced toward Ethan and caught him watching. Her smile was not corporate, it was small, open, and real. After Lucy went to bed that night, Ethan and Claire sat on the back steps with 2 mugs of tea between them. The air smelled like cut grass and summer rain. The neighborhood was quiet. Ethan stared at the dark sky for a long time before speaking. "I read the file," he said finally. Claire nodded. "I did too." Ethan swallowed. She knew he said. Lena knew she might not come home. Claire's voice was quiet, yes. Ethan's hands tightened around his mug. "And she still kissed Lucy goodnight and made lunches and argued with me about whether we needed more bananas." Claire's eyes softened. "That was Lena," she said. Ethan looked at Claire. "When you said it at the restaurant," he murmured, "you could have that too." Claire did not look away. "I meant it," she said. Ethan's throat tightened. "I hated you," he admitted. Claire nodded, accepting it without flinching. "I know." Ethan let out a slow breath. "And you still did what you did." Claire's voice dropped. "I did it for Lena," she said. "And I did it for Lucy. And somewhere in the middle I did it because I cared about you." Ethan stared at his hands, then at the porch railing, then finally back at her face. His heart felt different now, not healed in the sense of erased, more like it had expanded in places he did not know could stretch. Lucy's words came back to him from that terrible night. Mom said, "Hearts can grow bigger." Ethan reached out slowly and placed his hand over Claire's where it rested on the step between them. Claire's fingers tensed at first, then relaxed. She turned her hand slightly and laced her fingers with his tentative but steady. Ethan's voice came out rough. "I will never stop missing her," he said. Claire nodded. "I would never ask you to," she replied. Ethan met her eyes. "But I do not want to live like my life ended with hers." Claire's gaze held his bright with something she did not try to hide. "Then do not," she said. Ethan leaned in and kissed her. It was not rushed. It was not desperate. It was careful, like opening a door you were not sure you deserved to walk through. When they pulled back, Claire rested her forehead against his for a moment. Her breathing was steady. Her hand stayed in his. Inside, Lucy slept with Benny tucked under her chin, safe enough to dream about pancakes again. Ethan sat with Claire under the quiet sky and felt something settle in his chest. Not replacement. Not forgetting. Just room. If you felt something in this story, take a second to like the video and subscribe for more. And I want to hear from you, so drop a comment below and tell me where you are watching from and what part hit you the hardest.